Chapter 775. Relying on his own strength, he was able to take down 2 cities consecutively, and that was evident. Fu Jingji looked at the formation in the sky with a pale face. Is that an army? Is that the Null Division? He suddenly felt that his previous actions were extremely foolish. He was a martial artist on the list of powerhouses, but facing such a powerful force he was equally affected. I don't have time. Tang Tian shook his head. Of course, to put it in a more elegant way, gold would shine wherever it went. 1,000 men was enough to form a small-scale army, which meant that he could choose even more tactics than before. To a military general there was nothing better than that. It was the first time Xiao Hanguang was disregarded like that since young. Regardless of where he was, he had always been the focus of attention. Even Fu Jingji was asked a few questions by Ghost Face Mask, but he was like air. Han Bingning was also attracted to the scars on the city walls and secretly gestured to himself, I can do the same thing with my full strength, but it consumes too much energy and I can't unleash more than a few times. Although they were chasing after the figure, but the gap between them was still getting bigger and bigger. The cruel truth was that Ghost Face Mask's Demon Six Seals was much stronger than his own. Everyone had been training extremely hard recently, and the atmosphere of the Null Division had undergone a huge change. Fu Jingji and the rest then witnessed Ghost Face Mask's might, and did not dare to breathe loudly. The Lu family, that was a family with 2 lists, they were so glorious, but in the blink of an eye they had fallen. How could they not be emotional? Xiao Hanguang blurted out, Can you teach me? There is still a group of our men in Galloping Horse City. Tang Tian said, Niechio, bring some men to receive them. Su Yi, you go with them. Xiao Hanguang came to ask him for guidance on the Demon Six Seals, which surprised Tang Tian, but he quickly regained his composure. Harboring such complicated emotions, Xiao Hanguang quietly observed Ghost Face Mask in the dark. All of the noises disappeared, everyone puffed out their chests and became serious. Xiao Hanguang's current state of mind was in a mess. The joy of not having to face torture mixed with the indignation of being ignored. Xiao Hanguang fell into a dilemma again. Tang Tian did not notice the change in Xiao Hanguang's expression. He continued, My Demon Six Seals was comprehended from the heavy demonic execution. I do not know how to tell you how exactly is the Demon Six Seals. There are many changes that I cannot describe. But I think you can train in the heavy demonic execution, maybe you will be able to comprehend it. But you can learn from the Null Division. Tang Tian continued. The entire Sharp Wind City had surrendered, and the Null Division were naturally sent out. Xiao Hanguang knew where their camp was. He was now 100% sure that Ghost Face Mask trained in the Demon Six Seals, although it looked very different from what he trained in. He had a misconception that Ghost Face Mask's Demon Six Seals was the real deal. Demon Tang to Ji, Demon they, Demon Ghost Tian they, the Demon they, Tang they, Ji, they are they, Ming they of Tang Tian they, Tian was and of people. They Fu they. Of them of Tang of them they. No one had ever doubted Tang Tian's orders. Purple Cuckoo City had moved out in full force, and Tang Tian had consecutively taken down East Immortal City and Sharp Wind City, which made everyone realize that it was not suitable to stay in Purple Cuckoo City. Over 800 air explosions sounded out in unison. The originally loud and clear explosions became extremely gloomy, as though there was a gigantic drum in the air, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Every step the formation took forward would bring forth a shockwave. After suffering for a few days, he was on the verge of collapse. He felt that he would go crazy if he continued like this, and decided to seek advice from Ghost Face Mask. When Xiao Hanguang surrendered, he was still thinking about how Ghost Face Mask would treat him, if he would interrogate him about the Demon Six Seals, and if he would be tortured. The Demon Six Seals held a high position in Sin Domain, and no other inheritance could compare to it. If he were to land in the hands of others, it would be normal for him to be interrogated and tortured. Xiao Hanguang only felt countless gazes landing on him, and suddenly he had a bad premonition. Han Bingning's mood was somewhat gloomy. After everyone discussed passionately, they came to a conclusion. A pervert is still a pervert no matter where he goes. The orderly and uniform footsteps, with a frequency that could cause one's hair to stand, heavily struck on everyone's heart, causing the heart to palpitate, to tremble, pervading out in the air. Sharp Wind City sunk into silence. Heavy demonic execution? Xiao Hanguang was confused. The entire Sharp Wind City was alarmed by the commotion. All of them walked out of their rooms, and when they saw the dense formation, all of their faces changed. He was excited. Is this the absolute technique left behind by my ancestor? Boom. But he still gathered his last bit of courage and sought advice from Ghost Face Mask. Galloping Horse City was the foundation of the Lu family, and without it, even if they had Lu Xianxia, they would only be struggling at death's door. Amauri looked at the terrifying hole on the city wall, and was speechless. Crazy Tang is becoming stronger. Amauri will also become stronger. Amauri suddenly raised his arms and shouted, "Defeat Crazy Tang." Ghost Face Mask ignored him. They quickly entered Sharp Wind City. The citizens of Sharp Wind City sized up the army curiously. Everyone knew that Ghost Face Mask had an army under him. Army, this term was too foreign to the people of Xin Domain. Yes. Heavy demonic execution is the absolute technique of the Shui family. In the past, Ancestor Li had stayed in the Shui family for a period of time. Tang Tian said. Yes. Niechio and Suyi replied. Niechio and the rest stood in front of Tang Tian. Learn from the Null Division? Xiao Hanguang's eyes lit up once again. It did not matter who he learned from as long as he could learn it, he said without hesitation. I will go find them. There is nothing shameful for the strong to be the teacher. He consoled himself and relaxed. But very quickly he thought, how will Ghost Face Mask send me away? Will he mock me? Or tell me that what I am training in is wrong? Or continue to ignore me? But what made him look forward to it was that the Null Division would have more than 1,000 members. Tang Tian shook his head. It's not them, it's Purple Cuckoo City's Null Division. At the start, Xiao Hanguang thought that Ghost Face Mask was putting on an act. But after a few days he finally confirmed that the other party did not even place him in his eyes. Everyone be alert, do not embarrass the master. He said indifferently. Then I will go to Purple Cuckoo City. Xiao Hanguang stood up and prepared to leave. He started to doubt the inheritance that he had trained in for 20 years, and the indescribable pain started to devour his heart. He had a portion of confidence that came from the Demon Six Seals. The 20 years of confidence was like a mountain, but the foundation was being shaken. There were many minute differences between the two, and Xiao Hanguang even suspected that he had trained incorrectly in many areas. When the Null Division got closer, everyone could clearly see them. The Null Division members around him all turned their faces. All of them wanted to hang a sign on their bodies that said, I don't know him. Han Bingning then thought about Liang Qiu and Sima Xiangshan. There was no news of them, but she was not anxious as Tang Tian would definitely save them. In a short period of time, Tang Tian had subdued East Immortal City and Sharp Wind City, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. Every single one of their strengths were not worth mentioning, but when they formed such a dense formation no one could ignore them. The orderly formation looked as though it had been sliced by a blade. They remained unmoving. Every movement of these people was synchronized. Their footsteps were as precise as a machine's. In the air they stepped forward at the same time, and an air shield appeared beneath their feet. It was densely packed and orderly, causing people's hearts to turn cold. This sentence caused Xiao Hanguang's face to darken. As expected, Ghost Face Mask will not tell me the secret. But that's right, if it were me, I would definitely not divulge it to anyone. I called for all of you because the situation has changed, we might have to increase our speed. Tang Tian first explained to everyone, then turned to Fu Jingji and said, Patriarch, please explain the situation to them. Although Niechio could not see, but his senses were extremely sharp. As a military general he had to think of the bigger picture, and the far-reaching effects of Tang Tian's sudden increase in strength. He had to admit that in the Xin domain, an individual's sudden increase in strength was more effective than an army. Nothing was more convincing than the truth. An army had never appeared in the Xin domain before, and everyone was filled with curiosity. What will an army look like? Fu Jingji quivered. He immediately stepped forward and spoke respectfully. Yes. We have received news that Lu Xiang has already brought his family and escaped from Galloping Horse City. He should have known of the outcome of the battle and know that he is not Master's opponent, so he decided to leave early and preserve the Lu family's vitality. She did not expect it, Amauri did not expect it, Liang Qiu did not expect it, and Sima Xiangshan did not expect it. Unknowingly they had already left their past selves far behind. Hearing Amauri's childish words, Han Bingning could not help but smile. The haze in his heart swept away. That's right, I have always treated Tang Tian as my goal. And it is because of that that I am able to grow to my current level. The citizens of Sharp Wind City were even more silent out of fear. Oh, I'll leave him to you. Tang Tian pointed to Xiao Guang. He wants to learn the heavy demonic execution. Fu Jingji sighed in his heart. He admired Lu Xingxiang's decisiveness, but at the same time he could not help but feel a sense of sympathy. Seeing that the situation was not good, to cut off one's arm was not something an ordinary person could do. But this choice also caused the Lu family to fall to rock bottom. Niechio was extremely busy. The members that were rescued from East Immortal City had disrupted their training rhythm, but he still thought of ways and added a new training plan. Thinking about Sharp Wind City and the new batch of members that were rescued, Niechio felt a headache coming on. Xiao Guang's face that was filled with anticipation once again dimmed down. When the Null Division landed at Tang Tian's residence, the terrifying heavy footsteps disappeared, and the entire city awoke from the silence. The absurd feeling made Xiao Guang feel even more conflicted. He was a true descendant of Ancestor Li, and had trained in the Demon Six Seals since young. To suddenly realize that there was someone in the world who had trained the Demon Six Seals to a level higher than himself, it was a huge blow to his confidence. Master strength has improved by leaps and bounds. He rejoiced in his heart. Luckily, I do not have any enmity with Master Ghostface Mask. After thinking about it, he decided to speak the truth. I do not know if my Demon Six Seals is correct or not. Dong dong dong. That's right, Ghostface Mask treated him like air and ignored him. Chapter 776. Hearing the words Pig Trotters King, Wu Matian rolled his eyes. His roasted pig trotters swept the entire army, and was the most popular dish for many years. His reputation in the Southern Alliance army was far from his roasted pig trotters. The time that Xie Yuan had bought for the Swift army was extremely precious. Of course, there is one more thing, and that is confidence. Wu Matian revealed a look of ridicule. In the eyes of Goqing Wendao and the rest, who are we? Even a strand of their leg hair would be thicker than ours. There are hidden dangers in splitting up, and they will definitely see through it. They will also see through our intentions, but they will still split up. Even if they split up, they're still stronger than us. What are they afraid of? Compared to the hidden danger of dividing our forces, time is more important. The perilous defensive line finally had the chance to breathe, and allowed the Southern Alliance's second defensive line, after the initial panic, to finally be set up. The mercenary army was definitely not clean. They were all wily old foxes, swindling and swindling. There was nothing they were not good at. Everyone was talking at the same time. All sorts of evil tricks emerged one after another. They're going to come anyway, so why should we lie? There's no way around it. The Stone Forest Sand Continent is on the turbulent flow belt. Warships can't go there. They have to pass through the stone forest and reach the estuary behind our defensive line. Ba, how did I end up in the pig's trotters? He focused his attention, and under everyone's eager gazes he continued. But the Swift army was only able to block the rope, and the crazy wild boars slowed down, but it is not enough. Because they have more people than us, they are bigger and their skin is thicker. If we directly collide with them, we have no chance of winning. Then what should we do? Let them split up. As long as they do that, we'll have a chance. We are Chi. Aya snorted. Aya's resolute tone showed her determination. How's the Stone Forest Sand Continent? It's just that the defensive line has to be moved back. If it falls, there will be no buffer. The meeting room became quiet. Everyone was attracted by Wu Matian's actions. Everyone's eyes lit up. That's right. Street fighting. Wu Matian choked and laughed awkwardly. Yes, Chi is long, Xin is short. We have many shortcomings, but we also have our strengths. In terms of defense, we cannot compare to the Swift army. No one could compare to Shi Xin and his group of underworld continent lunatics. But in terms of urban warfare, who can compare to us? Big Sister's eyes that were filled with anticipation landed on him. Wu Matian knew that he had to reveal something. If not when the meeting ends, what awaited him would be a mountain of pig trotters to roast. So, we're going to use urban warfare to deal with them. Wu Matian waved his hand. That's all I have thought of. Everyone should also think about it and see if there are any good ideas. The atmosphere in Skull Unit was extremely tense. Everyone's faces were ugly. This time everyone panicked. Everyone's spirits rose. That's right, this is only the first battle, what's the rush? Wu Matian took a step back without batting an eyelid. He coughed lightly and spoke. The Swift army fought a good battle and they deserve this victory. But in my opinion, they've also encountered the most suitable battlefield for them. Defensive formation? Who could beat them? But everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. What if they went around to other continents? An army's reputation was built from fighting, and borrowing the advantage of a defensive formation, they were able to defend against enemies many times their size. That was an elite army. But if the enemy's general was Iron Spear Cliff, that was not something any ordinary elite army could do. The nickname, Pigtrotter's King, spread like wildfire. Wu Matian initially tried to correct everyone, but after that more and more people started to call him Pigtrotter's King, to the point that Master Bing even called him Pigtrotter's King in an army meeting, causing him to despair. His abilities gained the trust of the entire Skull unit. The Skull unit that held the same position as the Swift army, their performance in the battle could only be considered average. They did not collapse but retreated in an orderly manner, and from the tactics manuals, they did not have any bright spots and did not make many mistakes. Xie Yuan became famous after the battle and was currently a famed general. In the discussions in the market, many people even felt that the Swift army's strength had already reached the level of a gold rank army, and was only a step away from becoming a gold rank army. Guys, didn't we escape the last time? This time if we pretend to escape they will definitely chase after us. We can first set up a formation in the Water Fairy continent, and then feign cowardice and escape towards the Stone Forest Sand continent. They will definitely chase after us. I was too useless. I'm sorry everyone. Xie Yuan had displayed an outstanding view of the entire situation, as well as surprising courage and decisiveness, causing the entire Skull unit to feel ashamed. The Skull unit and the Swift army had joined the master at the same time, and were treated at the same level, and the two armies usually performed at the same level. The two armies had always been competing in the dark, but no one expected for the battle to be so far apart. That's right. Don't scare our brothers. The meeting room immediately exploded into an uproar. Everyone started talking at once. He was always so crude and direct. Wu Matian said solemnly, the most crucial point in this battle is time. Master Bing's strategy is very simple, to drag out the battle long enough. So the defensive line behind is a quagmire. But for the Honorable Martial Continent, it is the exact opposite. They are the guest army and the longer it drags out the more disadvantageous it is for them. As long as they are unable to defeat us in a short period of time, their intimidation towards the other powerhouses of the southern region will lose its effect, and they will sink into the quagmire of war, and that is the true quagmire. So they will definitely split their forces and advance together. That way they will be able to find the weakness of the defensive line in the shortest time. That's the logic. Aya seemed to understand, but why would they split their forces? Then what should we do? Aya revealed an excited look. Her hand could not help but hold on to her sword hilt. The most important use of the first defensive line is to slow down the enemy's speed. He thought for a moment and said, the enemy is like a wild boar that is sprinting forward aggressively, but as long as their speed is lowered, the threat will be reduced by half. But now they are being blocked by the Swift army and their speed has decreased by quite a bit. Everyone listened attentively. They were all mercenaries, and compared to Xie Yuan who came from a specialized school, their tactical attainments were much worse. But they were still veterans in the battlefield, and now that Wu Matian had broken down the contents and explained it to them, how could they not understand? A gold rank army, the strongest army in the Sacred Saint Galaxy. In the entire Honorable Martial Continent, there were only 5 gold rank armies, and all of them were directly under the 5 great generals. Oh, that makes sense. Aya, whose eyes were red, immediately bowed to everyone, her heart filled with guilt. For the Swift army to be able to fight such a battle, it was mostly because of Xie Yuan's high standard. Aya, who was also a commander, knew that her standard was far from Xie Yuan. Pala. The conversation started to turn into a bitter and reminiscing mode. The Skull unit used to be a mercenary army, and were extremely proficient in street battles, and after that with Master Tang Chou and Master Bing's guidance, they became even stronger. Wu Matian's arrival further clarified this point. Aya's agitated emotions calmed down. Pigtrotter's King is right, we still have to fight, we cannot lose face this time, we must definitely turn the tables beautifully. Upon knowing the truth about the Pigtrotters, The other party immediately became extremely passionate. What? You were the one who made the roasted pig trotters? Pig trotters king. Oh my, the famous pig trotters king. You don't know this, but ever since you stopped making it, oh my mouth has a faint taste. Let me tell you, I even dreamed of roasted pig trotters last night. But under the Swift Army's spectacular performance, they were overshadowed. Aya had a strong personality. When the Pink Skull unit was in dire straits, she was the one who bitterly supported them, and she had never cried before. But this time she cried for the entire night. In the past she always felt that she could help everyone, but the cruel reality made her realize how terrible her standard was, and that she had dragged everyone down. Big sister, what are you doing? Very quickly a chorus of voices echoed. That's right. Everyone has a responsibility. But they don't need to split their troops. Another person said. In the meeting room, a group of people had sinister green lights in their eyes, like a pack of cunning wolves. If he met any other army, they would start with a polite and indifferent tone. Wu Ma Tian? How do you do? Of course we have to lie. If we don't lie, we won't be able to lie. That's true, but how do we get them to come? Battles are fought by everyone. Everyone has a responsibility. Seeing that the situation was chaotic, Wu Ma Tian jumped onto the table and shouted at the top of his lungs. Street battles, we need a good battlefield. The more complicated the terrain, the better, and it has to be big enough. If not, we will not be able to hold them. Master Bing's defensive line is truly ruthless. Turbulent flow belt. Out of all the large armies in the Southern Alliance, the Skull unit was the #1 in street battles. Good place. There is no way to fly in the sky. There are sandstorms all year round, and the wind is sharper than knives. They can only walk on the ground. If we lose that place, we will not have the face to live anymore. Wu Ma Tian's strategy immediately gained everyone's approval. Wu Ma Tian coughed lightly, attracting everyone's attention, then jumped down and dusted off the non-existent dust on his hands and said slowly, "Furthermore, why is everyone so anxious? This is only the first battle. There are still battles to be fought. Are we afraid of not having a chance? Look at Master Bing's battle plan. This battle is so big that it can scare people. We have plenty of chances." But the darn nickname did not affect his position in the army, other than the violent female commander who would occasionally force him to roast a few pig trotters. Everything else was perfect. He could not help but admire Xianxia. Anyone would be able to summarize the situation after the battle, but to be able to think it through at such a crucial moment and still dare to do it, it showed his foresight and courage, which was much rarer than roasting pig trotters. The enemy will definitely split their troops. Wu Ma Tian said with confidence. Xianxia has just become famous. What will the people outside say? The third best defense under the heavens. Master Bing placed him at the front of the defensive line, and gave him sufficient depth and reinforcements. As long as the enemy general is not stupid, they will definitely not fight to the death with Xianxia. They will definitely be able to, but it will take a long time and the casualties will definitely be huge. They will definitely move to both sides and find an opportunity. Chapter 777. Do you look like you care? Chiu Hua had encountered the southern region's first army, the head of the 3 gold grade armies, the Sacred Pagoda Army. In the face of a famous opponent, the talented young man did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Both sides exchanged blows, both winning and losing. Chiu Hua, we are here. Bai Yu, who liked to be bold and unconstrained, and Guan Jin, who handled matters meticulously, the two of them were the best partners. Almost everyone in the southern region thought that the honorable Martial Continent's goal was not the Southern Alliance, but the entire southern region. The honorable Martial Continent had been eyeing the southern region for a long time, and their wild ambitions had long been revealed. After the initial panic, the southern region quickly reacted. All the major forces in the southern region reached a consensus to protect the southern region. That's right. Bai Yu placed his legs on the table and laid down on the chair without a care for his image, using his usual lazy tone. But to be looked down upon by others, how can I not care? Go Cheng Wendao's side had gained the upper hand with a show of strength. Other than Xianxia, the Southern Alliance's first line of defense had crumbled overnight. This also allowed everyone to clearly see the insurmountable gap between the Southern Alliance and the honorable Martial Continent. From then on, the White Crow Army entered the eyes of the higher-ups of the Bai family. After that, he won every battle. Although he didn't have any world-shaking battles, The number of experts that fell at his hands were as many as the hairs on a cow. The White Crow army also became stronger. From a bronze army, they were promoted to a silver army, and finally at the end of the year they became a gold rank army. The Honorable Martial Continent's three great armies, Go Qing Wendao, Chiu Su Hua and Mo Xen, were like three arrowheads that advanced together. No one in the Bai family would have thought that the Bai family would be supported by such a person in the future. The Southern Alliance just experienced a crushing defeat. Guanjin reminded Bai Yu then said, "Your old classmate fought well." He was different from Xie Yuan, who was gentle and strict. Bai Yu's character was frivolous and frivolous. He was quick-witted and had the nickname of Southern Region Fox. Whether it's worth it or not, only they know. Bai Yu yawned. Now that the entire Southern region believes that they are coming for the entire Southern region, they have never thought, what if they are really going for the Southern Alliance? Splitting into three was easy to explain, as the front could not accommodate so many armies. And look, is there anyone helping the Southern Alliance? No, why not? Everyone's strength was attracted by Mo Xian and Chiu Su Hua. Guanjin was stunned. Then we're just going to let Ma Xin head to the Southern Territory? Guanjin's face revealed a serious look. He trusted Bai Yu's judgment, although he looked like a fool, but his judgment towards the battlefield was extremely sharp and had never been wrong. I know him. He has the ability. Bai Yu's expression also became serious. He is the kind of person who, as long as you give him the opportunity, he will definitely grab it. The Southern Alliance's defeat only proves that they are a group of amateurs, but they have a top-notch commander. You're not going to deal with him? Guanjin involuntarily put down her teacup and frowned. Other than us, no one can stop him. Guanjin resisted the urge to roll her eyes and poured herself a cup of hot tea to moisten her throat. Ma Xin isn't easy to deal with. Bai Yu's life was rather interesting. He was mischievous since young until he graduated. He and Xie Yuan were classmates, but unlike Xie Yuan, who excelled in both academic and moral conduct, he copied homework, skipped classes and cheated on exams. He was a well-known problem student in the school. If it wasn't for the Bai family, he would have been expelled from the school long ago. He looked at Bai Yu, who was sleeping. This guy has tricked everyone. The Honorable Martial Continent said that their target is the Southern Alliance. But when the Southern Wind Army suffered heavy losses, the entire southern region went silent. Compared to Go Qing Wendao's terrifying offensive capabilities and Chiu Su Hua's overflowing talent, Ma Xin did not seem to be too dazzling, but in the end, it was this unremarkable guy who fought the strongest battle. Panic quickly spread throughout the southern region. Guanjin started to think that he was joking. Are top-notch commanders really cabbages that can be found on the streets? After graduating at the age of 16, he returned home and immediately ran to the Patriarch to request for an army quota, and clamored about forming his own army. Such a ridiculous request was naturally rejected, but who knew that Bai Yu did not have any intention of giving up and started to harass him day and night. The Bai family patriarch and clan elders were extremely annoyed, and decided to use an army quota to send the troublesome brat away. Guanjin immediately realized the beauty of Bai Yu's method. We need to hide our tracks. The Honorable Martial Continent has infiltrated the southern region deeply. If we are able to suddenly appear at Chiu Su Hua's side, he will definitely panic. Sacred Pagoda Army. Bai Yu's face was crafty. We are gold rank rookies, of course we have to follow our big brother. Furthermore, don't you think that 2 against 1 is great? They actually dare to look down on us. Their foresight is truly terrible. Bai Yu saw Guanjin's ugly expression and laughed. Don't bother about that. The Southern Alliance is weak, but the Shang continent is strong. If the Honorable Martial Continent thinks that Go Qing Wendao alone is enough, they will definitely suffer. In truth, I would rather fight the 5 Honorable Martial Tigers or the Sacred Pagoda than fight with the Shang continent. Bai Yu slapped his forehead. I forgot it's 2. Compared to the other 2 gold rank armies, they had long histories and inheritances. The White Crow army had just been promoted to a gold rank army. Even I feel that he is difficult to deal with. Hey, do you not believe in my foresight? Bai Yu's face was unhappy. Since it's just a verbal quota, I'll let him do as he pleases. Both parties had the same number of gold rank armies, and even if they were at a disadvantage, they still had the strength to fight. As for Mo Xian's side, they had defeated the Southern Wind Army, which was also a gold rank army. Alright, as long as they have fun. But no one thought highly of him. They never thought that Bai Yu would actually build an army, causing the patriarch and clan elders to be surprised. But of course, it was only a slight surprise. They all felt that it was most likely just for show, and randomly pulled a bunch of brats to make up the numbers. Since you know about it, then I have nothing to do with it anymore. I will sleep first. The Sacred Pagoda Army and the Southern Wind Army moved out. Our qualifications are too shallow. Guan Jin, who finished reading the news, said calmly. He was Bai Yu's adjutant, and one of the elders of the White Crow Army. Not going. Bai Yu moved his body slightly, thinking about Tang Tian's group. The sleepiness on his face disappeared, and he revealed a sneer. The Honorable Martial Continent and the Southern region are underestimating the Shang continent too much. So you think they can stop Goqing Wendao? No one took it to heart. To them, Bai Yu was just acting on a whim. Is an army so easy to build? Money, men, equipment, etc. Is that something a 16-year-old can handle? Guan Jin was startled. Guan Jin was long used to it. He was excited by Bai Yu's brazen idea, and wanted to immediately set it up. He finally understood why their route was so strange. Half a year had passed, and just when the Bai family thought that Bai Yu was most likely dead, Bai Yu brought the injured army and miraculously returned. Every piece of news was filled with pessimism, as though the southern region was already defeated, and no one even mentioned Bai Yu's reinforcements. Bai Yu yawned continuously, his eyelids drooped, and after a while he started to snore. A top-grade commander? Guan Jin was surprised. Bai Yu's eyes were always at the top, but it was rare to hear such a high evaluation from him. How did Bai Yu obtain his graduation certificate? The patriarch and the clan elders all knew it clearly. Why stop him? Bai Yu asked. Guan Jin subconsciously retorted, impossible, the Southern Alliance is not worth them mobilizing so many armies. Chapter 778. The seals were slightly shaky, but they were still complete. Tang Tian immediately became excited. Without saying a word, he soared into the sky and rushed high up. My request is simple, all of you advance together and tear apart this defensive line. His right hand had completed all of its transformations, like a pool of water that could no longer hold a single drop of water. Apart from throwing this punch, he couldn't do anything else. What can I do with my left hand? Heavy demonic execution? Angry fist seal? Grasping flower seal? Or weeping sword seal? After the continuous intense battles, all of them were powerful martial artists on the list of powerhouses. His horizons had been broadened and he had gained many insights. Xie Yuan is very strong. That was the first thought that surfaced in Goqing Wendao's mind when he heard of Cliff's setback. At that time he was completely relying on his instincts to fight. He did not collapse, but he did not leave the critical point either. Unexpectedly, his fighting strength was extremely ferocious at that time. Everyone stood up at the same time. Their expressions were cold as they acknowledged the order. Other than being cold, his words did not have any emotions. The Demon Six Seals similarly exhausted the power of the physique, and following the changes in the seals, the remaining physical strength in his body was quickly sucked dry. That's right. He maintained his meditation and slowly recalled all of his experiences. He was not unfamiliar with such a state in his life of training. He had encountered such situations many times. Another God Fist? Every time I use God Fist, won't I be exhausted to the point of death? How can I let my physical strength run out? Tang Tian shook his head. His body was already extremely weak, and was definitely unable to endure a second God Fist. If he were to forcefully activate it, he would definitely fall unconscious or even suffer a backlash. What else can I do? Goqing Wendao's tone was indifferent. His half-squinted eyes suddenly opened, revealing a cold blade aura. Tang Tian slowly opened his eyes. The world in front of him had become completely different. He did not push the blame away, nor did he give any excuses. Failure was failure. The reason why he did not move towards Galloping Horse City was because he felt that he had reached another bottleneck. God Fist. He still had God Fist. His expression became cold once again and his tone became extremely sharp. We have not fought outside of the Honorable Martial Continent for too long. We are not familiar with each other, and our understanding of the Southern Alliance is limited, but that is not an excuse for failure. Although his body was empty, it had not reached the critical point yet. Could it be that everything in the dream was what he had experienced? His godly fist was based on deducing all the variations of the basic fist technique, then reversing it, simplifying it, and condensing all the variations into one ultimate fist technique. This fist no longer had any transformations, only the transformation imprints, and it was these transformation imprints that attracted the law threads that were related to it. Due to the large number of transformation imprints, it resulted in the phenomenon of law threads being attracted. Go Qing Wendao squinted his eyes, a look of admiration flashed past his eyes. Regardless of victory or defeat, Cliff would never find excuses for himself, and he would never question any orders. Neither Ken nor Zeke could compare to Cliff in this regard. Out of the 6 demon seals he had gained enlightenment on 3 seals, but other than the Angry Fist seal he had only gained enlightenment on the Grasping Flower seal and the Weeping Sword seal. Previously he had thought that it was just a dream, but Xiaolan and the Undying Sword made him understand that it wasn't as simple as that. The terrifying aura of the Divine Fist swept across the entire city. Everyone looked at Tang Tian in shock. Yes. Cliff did not say anything else and sat down. Could it be that this will not work? The space around Tang Tian froze, countless law threads converged in his hand, and the light ball was compressed to its limit. Suddenly he thought about the process of training in the thousand-cleave demonic hand. It seemed to be similar to this. He could not help but laugh bitterly. He never thought that there would be a day where he would be troubled by the recovery of his physical strength. It was something that he would never have imagined in the past. Sharp Wind City was as bright as day. It was truly a tough battle. The fine vibrations penetrated deep into his bones, and the impure thoughts that he was unable to remove were slowly seeping out. The Weeping Sword seal's strengthening of the body was much slower than the Grasping Flower seal and the Angry Fist seal, but its effects were much deeper. At that time the heavy demonic execution was simply unstoppable, far surpassing his usual self. All of his methods, all of his techniques, were completely unleashed to their greatest value. Unknowingly, his body had become so strong that it allowed Tang Tian to unleash his godly fist. But what made him distressed was that it meant that he needed to find a way to continue exhausting his physical strength. Alright, this problem seems to be complicated, so Tang Tian threw it to the back of his mind without saying a word. Regardless of whether it was a dream or not, it was able to allow him to gain enlightenment on the Grasping Flower seal and the Weeping Sword seal. Especially the details of the dream, they were extremely clear and he could even remember the feelings he had. Zila. For some reason he suddenly thought about the feeling when he was on the verge of collapse. His gaze swept across the entire field. Victory. I only want to win. Do you understand? He paused for a moment, his gaze slowly swept across the generals and said indifferently, "We will split up." Formless Spirit Seal. Go Qing Wendao's voice was ice cold, his long and sinister eyes swept across the generals who were seated upright. The war room became silent. His fringe that looked like it was cut by a blade covered half of Go Qing Wendao's eyes. His handsome and somewhat bewitching face was somewhat pale white. That is the critical point. That battle was the most cruel and difficult battle that he had experienced up till now. Countless of times he was on the verge of collapse, and if he were to go through it again he was not sure if he could kill his way out. Sit down first. Go Qing Wendao looked at the white-haired Cliff, the cold lines on his skinny face becoming gentler. Cliff, Ken and Zeke were all great generals under him, and amongst them, Cliff had been with him for the longest time, and had made the greatest contributions. And he understood his number one general. Cliff was the model of a soldier, and would definitely not make any low-level mistakes. More importantly, the God Fist's transformations were over. That's right, I still have my left hand. The Golem 5 gestures and the Demon 6 seals had a deep relationship, and could be considered as the crude version of the Demon 6 seals. At that time in their bodies they formed 5 unique meridians, each with their own unique uses. But after that, Tang Tian used the Sword Tempest Cyclone to temper his body, and cultivated the unprecedented zero-energy body. All of the meridians and dantian in his body were swept clean and disappeared. It was as though there was an extremely taut and formless string quietly being plucked by his ears. A string sound came out. Out of the Golem 5 gestures he was most familiar with the Formless Spirit technique, because it could raise his intuition. But for the Formless Spirit seal he had not gained enlightenment on it, which made him feel weird. All of the generals trembled in their hearts and immediately replied, "Yes." Countless of law threads converged on his fist from all directions, and countless of changing seals swept past his mind. The light aura on his fist became even brighter, and in the blink of the eye, it became like a sun. Such a weak defensive line was actually able to block you guys for 3 days. Cliff, this is your responsibility. Everyone was shocked. Master actually decided to take action personally. Could it be that only in the critical state can I truly unleash my full potential? I will knock out Xieyuan and leave the rest to you guys, no problem, right? But how can I enter the critical state? Tang Tian frowned. His current physique had reached a point where it could cause people's hair to stand. This strength not only included the power of the physique, but also the intense life force, as he had swallowed too much life origin essence. Ordinary battles were unable to exhaust his physical strength, because the speed of his physical strength consumption could not even keep up with his recovery. Tang Tian was not resigned. He had a faint intuition in his heart that his guess was most likely correct. I am very disappointed. His body that had initially stopped improving was actually improving again. Tang Tian, who was racking his brains, suddenly had a light in his eyes. I got it. An unfamiliar yet familiar seal suddenly barged into his mind, and almost subconsciously his left hand formed a seal. Once that thought popped out, he could no longer suppress it. Tang Tian's current thirst for power was almost fanatical. Regardless of the method, as long as it could increase his fighting strength, he would choose it without hesitation. Cliff stood up with a bang and answered with his head held high, yes. What else can I do? Their morale is good. Seems like Xieyuan did not affect them much. He's like a killing machine. Above the clouds, Tang Tian's eyes lit up like stars. He slowly pulled his fist back. Tang Tian opened his eyes. The undying sword's fine vibrations swept through his body continuously. Although many of the generals maintained their calm, but the shock in their eyes betrayed the shock in their hearts. But the 3 generals, Cliff, Ken and Zeke, did not reveal any look of surprise. Everyone was waiting for him to save them. He still had to kill his way back to the Sacred Saint Galaxy. No, it's not enough. But regardless of how many changes it had when it was completed, it was only 1. No, I still have my left hand. Tang Tian suddenly thought of it. Illusion? I've never heard of such a powerful illusion before. When the formless spirit seal was formed, Tang Tian's body trembled, and a faint white aura, with him as the center, spread out in all directions. If not for the countless of sapphire blue dwarves in his dream, he would never be able to reach the critical point. Tang Tian could feel the power of the physique in his body being sucked out at an astonishing speed. The weakness of his physique, the strength of his glass-like mental state, the 2 completely different feelings appeared at the same time, and it was extremely contradictory. Go Qing Wendao was expressionless. He secretly evaluated in his mind and continued. The opponent's willpower is very tenacious and will not admit defeat easily. They want to drag us into a stalemate. They want to use the defense line to form a meat grinder, so they hope that we will split up. Time. Go Qing Wendao said coldly, if we want to break away from the stalemate, then we need to be like a sharp blade cutting through cowhide, and completely destroy their defense line so that they will not have the time to reorganize their defense line. I do not have the patience to continue fighting with them. They are betting on us splitting up, and that will offset our advantage in numbers. But this will also increase our chances of finding a weakness in their defense line. Chapter 779. Compared to the luxurious and dazzling stronghold that could become a target from 100 kilometers away, the interior of the Ocean Guardian stronghold was extremely chaotic. Just by piling up rare materials, this place had almost become a warehouse for rare materials instead of a fortress. The eyes of the soldiers beside Xieyuan lit up. This was the warship weapon that they often practiced, Moonwave Wheel, nicknamed Small Boat. The Moonwave Wheel needed 12 people to control it. It was extremely powerful and required a high level of proficiency in wavy blades. Xieyuan quickly came back to his senses. He opened a chest and a strange black gold weapon appeared in front of everyone. Compared to complicated spirit treasures, warship weapons were much simpler. To others it was very difficult to refine, but to Little Fool it was not a big problem. He had the soul-devouring flame, so it was extremely easy for him to refine the black gold. Large boxes that were more than 15 feet tall were neatly placed inside the transport ship. Xieyuan, who was used to living a hard life, was dumbfounded. Almost half of the materials were materials that he knew of but could not afford to use, and now they were all piled up here. Xieyuan was inexplicably amazed. Who knew that the Shang continent would actually be able to produce near gold-grade moon ripple wheels? The speed of improvement was truly stupefying. Xieyuan's heart skipped a beat. Like a hungry tiger pouncing on its prey, he pounced forward to examine it. Borrowing a large number of techniques from the forceful subjugating bead, the worship weapons that Little Fool refined were different from ordinary worship weapons. Alright, he was just that cowardly. A dazzling golden light suddenly lit up the transport ship. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look at the source of the golden light. He took the list, scanned it, and was stunned. Wait a minute. Pay attention to the angle of attack. But when he saw the chest, his eyes couldn't help but freeze. The chest was as tall as a person and it was actually made of black gold. Your survival is the key to our victory in this war. 200 worship weapons. This number far exceeded the amount he had requested. Pseudo-gold grade worship weapons were already quite rare. Xie Yuan was very clear that in the market, a quasi-gold grade moonwave wheel was incomparably expensive. Looking at the 200 moonwave wheels neatly arranged in front of him, he could only sigh at the wealth of the upper echelons. Worship weapons were powerful, but they were expensive. Nearly half of the cost of a warship was spent on the battleship. There were a total of 200 moonwave wheels in this batch. This number even exceeded the total equipment of a fleet, so it was no wonder that the soldiers were pleasantly surprised. Xie Yuan patrolled back and forth at the defensive line without stopping to rest. He turned his head and looked at the other wooden chest that he had just pried open. Inside was the crescent moon of the moon ripple wheel, which was also a faint gold color. The gigantic seashell rock was completely hollowed out, with large amounts of rare materials continuously filling it up, causing it to become even more sturdy. The southern region, which was flourishing with commerce, did not lack money, and the cost of building the Ocean Guardian stronghold was even more than money of the same size. A dignified gold armor stood solemnly and silently. Master Bing still has something for Commander Xia, Li Ran said. This feeling, it's so familiar. Where have I felt it before? Luckily it's finally completed. Moon Ripple Wheel. The Ocean Guardian stronghold guarded the southern Jiaxi route. Its strategic significance was self-evident. The southern Jiaxi route was one of the most important sea routes in the southern region, and the Ocean Guardian used to be a supply point for the southern Jiaxi route. After that, following the prosperity of the southern Jiaxi route, the position of the Ocean Guardian also rose, and it continued to expand and strengthen, forming the stronghold that it was today. Little Fool hesitated for a long time, but in the end he braced himself and worked overtime, spurring the horses. Immediately, everyone cheered. The Moon Ripple Wheel was obviously prepared for them by the higher-ups, as the Swift Army was most proficient in wavy blades. If they had so many Moon Ripple Wheels the last time, they would definitely not have suffered so many casualties. The Shang continent produced black gold, which was most suitable to be used to create warship weapons, so Xie Yuan had requested for a batch of warship weapons to increase the stronghold's fighting strength. Although the remodeled Ocean Guardian stronghold was already extremely sturdy and strong, but Xie Yuan knew that he had a huge responsibility and did not dare be careless, thus he submitted the request. It was truly so. It was formed from a rock that had a diameter of 7 kilometers, with the main body being the seashell rock. The seashell rock was a rather common rock in the Sea of Energy, and was able to effectively resist the corrosion of the Sea of Energy. But its hardness was not considered high and its quality was not considered sturdy. Bing's pretentious words would surface in Little Fool's mind from time to time. He felt that Bing was purely trying to squeeze out his labor force and was most likely lying to him, but what if it was true? As a stronghold, there was nothing worse than this. The Moon Ripple Wheel in front of him was completely different from the ones he usually used. There are other things. Producing spirits required time and the star treasures were almost used up. Little Fool thought for a long time and finally placed all of his attention on the black gold. The black gold's performance was outstanding and was suitable to be used to create weapons, but it was most suitable to be used as warship weapons. He was suddenly looking forward to Xie Yuan's expression when he received the batch of weapons. Master Little Fool refined the lotus. Could it be that the Moon Ripple Wheels were refined by Master Little Fool as well? Xie Yuan was slightly surprised. And considering that the Ocean Guardian stronghold was remodeled by Xie Yuan, Bing handed the task of guarding the Ocean Guardian stronghold to Xie Yuan. But now he was extremely glad that he was able to make it in time for the war. When Xie Yuan saw the Ocean Guardian stronghold for the first time, he had the same thought. After being mixed with a large amount of golden mica and being rebuilt, the Ocean Guardian stronghold looked even more luxurious and dazzling. The golden stars that looked like stars could be seen from afar. The golden mica could increase defense, but it was too conspicuous and required a new layer of mortar. The interior was hollowed out and the space was huge, but the structure was too brittle, so he brought over a large amount of black gold rocks and rebuilt 12 gigantic supports, to ensure that no matter how strong the attacks were, the stronghold would not collapse. He had to redivide the living area and battle area, and increase the emergency reinforcements, etc. Xie Yuan suppressed the suspicions in his heart and opened the chest. But his personal time and energy were limited, and time was tight, so he could only refine the core components, while the other components were completed by others. But even so, due to the huge amount, he was still extremely tired. Without hesitation, he obtained the rights from Bing and started to make bold and decisive changes. Could it be? He suddenly opened his eyes, the moon phase swallow's command whip. But it did not leave any marks on Xie Yuan. He had been through a lot and was used to the fickleness of the world and only treasured what he had. He was shocked by the 200 half-gold grade moon ripple discs that were sent over. Luckily, they are not gold grade, moon ripple discs. Right from the start, the Ocean Guardian stronghold was like a luxurious palace, and not an unbreakable stronghold. To be more accurate, it was half gold grade. Out of all the components of the moon ripple discs, only the crescent moon was gold grade, the rest were silver grade. After the Southern Alliance was established, the Ocean Guardian stronghold fell into their hands, and Xie Yuan received orders to investigate. The training of the recruits is too slow, we need to hurry up. Place the emphasis on controlling the warship weapons. That's right, it was the aura of the moon phase swallow's command whip. But Li Ran was still waiting for him by the side, so he resisted the urge. Li Ran was the leader of Qin Yu Ran's bodyguards, and had performed outstandingly in the battle at the Moon Manor. Qin Yu Ran felt that it was a waste of talent to have him by her side, so she recommended him to Tang Tian, and Li Ran quickly became one of Tang Tian's subordinates. Ocean Guardian stronghold. Xie Yuan revealed a look of joy and greeted Li Ran. You've worked hard. What's inside? The Ocean Guardian stronghold was one of the most famous strongholds in the southern region, and after many generations of expansion, its size continued to expand. There was once a military general of the Honorable Martial Continent that hailed the Ocean Guardian stronghold as the pearl of the southern region's sea of energy, and mocked the Ocean Guardian stronghold for being flashy but without substance. This kind of mockery was often heard, and the most common saying was that the cost of the Ocean Guardian stronghold was enough to build 3 strongholds of the same scale. Chapter 780. Following the reports from the front lines, Mei Chen Xiu calmed down. The Southern Alliance's first line of defense had been destroyed, although an outstanding military general like Xie Yuan had appeared, but the Southern Alliance's overall performance was not good. Destroying the Southern Alliance's supply lines, destroying the Southern Alliance's workshops, the continuous destruction would cause the Southern Alliance to lose blood. Although he did not think that the Southern Alliance could stop the Honorable Martial Continent's army, but his actions could greatly increase the speed of the Honorable Martial Continent's conquest of the southern region. In time, the pirates' activities quickly became rampant. Destruction he only needed to destroy wantonly. The current Steel Mountain continent was like a half-naked beauty that was extremely alluring. Their only obstacle was the Steel Mountain army. At such a close distance, the stronghold guarding the estuary was instantly enveloped by the concentrated attacks. The other reason was their fighting style. The underworld continent's demonic mounts emphasized on mobility, long-distance assaults, harassment from the enemy's rear, and in the initial phase of the war, the Southern Alliance's most urgent need was to establish a defensive line to stabilize the situation. Attack with all your might. He could imagine how much pressure the Southern Alliance's front lines were under. Mei Chen Xiu could even clearly see the figures sleeping behind the observation window of the stronghold, and his mouth could not help but reveal a smile, but the smile did not have any warmth, but was as cold as a blade. Zhou Xian was like an experienced hunter, patient and cautious as he followed the white pirate from afar. 200 Since ancient times, wars of conquest would always be met with the most intense resistance from the citizens. The sea of flames flickered, distorting the sea of energy. The Southern Alliance, who was pressuring the borders, could no longer care about him. Boss, we caught them. Follow them, be careful, don't attract their attention. When the pirates regained their footing, they stared blankly at the terrifying flames that soared from the stronghold. After a short moment of silence, they cheered loudly. Qiu Su Hua, who is the same age as me, should not be nervous in such a situation. In the distance, a group of indistinct figures quietly appeared from the darkness. Countless thick rays of light and balls of light that were as dense as rain shot out from the pirate ship at the same time. 500 m. In their vision, the stronghold at the estuary was getting closer and closer. They were quickly approaching, but the stronghold did not sound out any alarm, as though the enemy did not notice them. Mei Xianxia was very calm. Even if the front lines were advancing smoothly, he did not think that the war would end in a short period of time. This was a war of conquest. To the southern domain there was no way out. They would fight to the death. Thinking about the mountain of weapons, Mei Xianxia wanted to drool. The white pirates that he led were the elites of the honorable martial continent, but their equipment was still worrying. Of course, to the pirates the current equipment was enough to satisfy everyone, but to the ambitious Xianxia it was far from enough. The Suji Worldwide Commerce was one of the most important members of the Southern Alliance, and with its status as a weapons merchant, the majority of the weapons in the Southern Alliance came from them. The first battle of the famed Mei Xianxia, this was something to look forward to. Mei Xianxia knew that this was a spy who had infiltrated to receive them, but seeing that the estuary was getting closer, his heart was still beating rapidly. He could not help but hold his breath. The fleet quietly moved forward. The deep and dark sea of energy was extremely quiet. Only the distant light emitted a faint orange light that shone through the windows of the warships. But Zhou Xian did not give up. The honorable martial continent's invasion had caused the various powerhouses in the southern region to panic, giving Lady Ro a chance to display her abilities. And if Mei Xianxia's pirates were to find a foothold, it would undoubtedly be akin to burying a poisonous thorn in their backs. His tone was extremely soft, as though he was afraid of alerting the quiet stronghold in front of him, but the order that sounded like a whisper could be heard clearly in the quiet fleet. The pirates were in an uproar. The stronghold was already within a kilometer radius, and they could launch an attack from that distance. Bing agreed to his request. An even more dazzling light aura lit up from the stronghold. The sturdy and indestructible walls were instantly torn apart like paper, shattering into pieces. The shards did not even have time to fly out, and were engulfed by the dazzling flames. He was slowly closing in on his target, the Steel Mountain continent. He had probed and attacked a few cities, but did not find any traces of warships. He had never thought that Zhou Xian would not ride on a warship, but bring the underworld continent's demonic mounts to travel long distances in the sea of energy, chasing after him relentlessly. The Steel Mountain continent was not a big continent, and very few people knew that the extremely ordinary continent was actually the headquarters of the Suji Worldwide Commerce, one of the top 5 weapon magnates in the southern region. It is time for me to replenish myself. Even the pirates were stunned by the scene. The shockwave from the explosion swept through the entire fleet like a storm. Sure enough, the faintly discernible pressure that he felt earlier had disappeared. Mei Xianxia, the gentle and feminine name, was a person that even Bing felt was troublesome to deal with. The honorable martial continent's invasion caused Bing to immediately retract his defensive line and ignore Mei Xianxia. This battle would definitely shake the Southern Alliance. Mei Xianxia never thought that there would actually be people chasing after him. A chance bestowed by the heavens. Land on the Steel Mountain continent. The unstable energy around the stronghold was quickly ignited, and in the blink of an eye, the entire place had transformed into a sea of flames. That was their purpose. 300 m. A rare sight. His palms were perspiring. Mei Xianxia's guest army was fighting, and the backbone of his subordinates were all generals of the honorable martial sea, but that did not change their nature as pirates. No matter how outstanding a pirate was, he was still a pirate. Lady Ro roamed around the various powerhouses. No matter how skillful she was still just a social butterfly. The underworld continent's demonic mounts had been replenished with a large amount of fresh blood, but their overall fighting strength did not increase, and instead fell. He needed time and battles to train and integrate. Mei Xianxia led the white pirates and was undoubtedly the best whetstone. Ignoring the strategic significance, the Steel Mountain continent's weak defense was also one of the reasons why Mei Xianxia was moved. The Steel Mountain continent only had one army, and it was the Suji Worldwide Commerce's own army. In the Honorable Martial Continent's Intelligence Systems evaluation, the Steel Mountain Army was described as a group of merchants dressed in luxurious equipment. Zhou Xian led the underworld continent's demonic mounts, and chased after the white pirates. But if the two of them were to join hands, it was enough to cause fear. Xianxia was extremely excited. The front lines had already attracted all of the Southern Alliance's attention, and the empty back was like an unprotected beauty, causing people to drool. He did not make a move recklessly, and after a few rounds of probing attacks causing panic, he led his troops and disappeared from everyone's vision. Following the dangerous situation at the front lines, he was not the only one who had his eyes on the juicy cake at the empty back. All of his colleagues were also sharpening their blades. In the chaos and panic, Xianxia's white pirates were like sharks hiding in the deep sea. With that thought, the nervousness in his heart dissipated by half and his breathing calmed down. The estuary was getting closer and closer, but the stronghold did not have any movements, causing him to be extremely calm. This is probably the most important battle in my life. The opponent's craftiness made Zhou Xian even more careful. He knew that he only had one chance, and if he failed, it would be extremely difficult to catch the opponent a second time. And the time left for him to resolve this problem was limited. As long as the front lines were in danger, he had to lead the underworld continent's demonic mounts to support them. The construction of any weapon base could not be completed in a short period of time. The Honorable Martial Continent's elites all bellowed out, calming down the commotion, and the fleet quietly continued to move closer. He was not there to watch the show. I can only hope that the Suji Worldwide Commerce's weapons are truly as exquisite as what they say. If they were able to destroy the Southern Alliance's source of weapons, especially their weapons manufacturing base, it would undoubtedly be fatal to the Southern Alliance. Such an attack would not be apparent in the initial stages, but after the battle continued for a period of time, the lack of equipment and supplies would gradually become apparent, and such an effect would last for a long period of time. Zhou Xian was calm. He did not celebrate too early. He had fought for so many years and had never met such a crafty enemy. Leng's tone revealed an indescribable excitement, and when the generals around Zhou Xian heard that, they all revealed looks of joy. Zhou Xian had his own considerations. The collapse of the first line of defense meant that the pressure on the Southern Alliance would increase. Bing needed to consider the bigger picture, and compared to the bigger picture, be it Xianxia or Lady Rou, they were not as dangerous and direct as the Honorable Martial Continent's three fronts. If it was just Xianxia alone, it would not be worth the effort, but behind Xianxia there was a terrifying woman, Lady Rou. Lady Rou had an acute sense for politics and was proficient in scheming and plotting in the palace. To pirates, chaos would always be their favorite, and they would only be able to fish in muddy waters. As for whether or not the southern region would be breached, what did that have to do with them? The greedy pirates were only thinking about how to take the opportunity to fish. All of the warships quickly entered the estuary. In the previous hide-and-seek, the enemy could not do anything to him, and that made him extremely excited. Lady Rou did not reveal anything to him, so when he knew that the Honorable Martial Continent's army was invading the southern region, he was shocked, but very quickly he realized that it was the best opportunity. Xianxia was in high spirits. His chest was surging with emotions at the moment. Even if he was facing an elite force, he had the confidence to win. When the last pirate warship entered the Steel Mountain continent, the sea of energy seemed to have returned to silence. Only the remaining half of the stronghold at the estuary was still burning. It was truly a continuous bloodletting. Chapter 781. The pirates advanced at full speed, immediately causing the commanding officer inside the stronghold to panic. He roared with all his might, "Attack! Attack with all your might!" Suddenly, a loud alarm broke the peace of the Steel Mountain continent. The pirates were all extremely excited. There was nothing else that could make them more excited than the scene in front of them. The entire Steel Mountain continent was wailing beneath their feet. Countless of riches were opening up for them. Countless people's life and death were in their hands. Steel Mountain Army? Xianxia was surprised. But not only did Zhou Xian not expand the scale of the underworld continent's demonic mounts, he had instead suppressed them. Looking down from the warship, Xianxia felt as though he was admiring a beautiful painting. In the end, he was still a disciple of the Su family, and Su Honglin was doing his best. One after another, figures leapt down from the pirate ships, The pirates released weird screams and roars as they descended from the sky. Mei Xianxia's expression remained calm. All ships listen up, advance at full speed, prepare to fire. More accurately, they are the Steel Mountain Army's reserves. Sir Rust looked and laughed. The real Steel Mountain Army has long been scared shitless. Su Honglin also knows that the young master soldiers are unreliable, so he recruited a new batch of people and used the name of reserves. Looking at the numbers, I think half of them have escaped. The Honorable Martial Continent's invasion caused the southern region to be in chaos, and everyone was in danger. The armies that they worked with in the past could not even take care of themselves, so how could they take care of the Suji worldwide commerce? The situation in the southern region was quickly worsening. Countless pirates were springing up like bamboo shoots after the rain, appearing out of nowhere and appearing everywhere. A few merchant groups were robbed consecutively, causing the Suji worldwide commerce to be shaken. But they suddenly realized that they could not buy an army even if they had money, and immediately panicked. Only then did they think about their own Steel Mountain Army. Xiu Xian did not say a word, his right hand held onto the evening snow ocean's white blade hilt. He strode forward. Their speed was the same, their steps were the same, as though they were cut by blades. Even their breathing was flawless. The Suji worldwide commerce had joined the Southern Alliance, and were able to obtain a share of the profits from the pontoon bridge. Their future was bright. The black gold was a strategic material, allowing the Suji worldwide commerce to be like a tiger that had grown wings. Although the Bai family was able to obtain a portion of the profits, but ultimately, they were not specialized weapons merchants. This point could be seen from the weapons orders, as more than 70% of the Southern Alliance's weapons were given to the Suji worldwide commerce. All of Suji worldwide commerce's workshops were working day and night, operating at full capacity. The soldiers were all stunned. After a few seconds, they came to their senses as though they had just woken up from a dream. The barracks was like an explosion and the soldiers were like headless flies. The scene was extremely chaotic. The pirates who were in a killing frenzy were slapped a few times by the elites of the Honorable Martial Continent before they regained their senses. All the battleships stopped their attacks and pulled into formation, following Mei Xianxia's ship with all their might. After being abandoned for a long time, the current Steel Mountain Army completely did not have any fighting strength. Su Honglin shook his head inwardly. If he had known this would happen, why did he do it in the first place? The 500 men that were chosen from the underworld continent's demonic mounts were the true elites. Every single one of them was a silver saint. They had gone through the cruelest test and were extremely powerful. Any one of them would definitely be a captain if they were in any other place. Xiu Xian was a staunch supporter of this training method. The 500 of them moved forward in silence, as if they were giant ghosts of slaughter. Mei Xianxia's volley had not only destroyed the stronghold, it had also destroyed the enemy's will to fight. The 500 underworld continent's demonic mounts stood solemnly. The establishment of the Southern Alliance caused Xiu Xian's reputation to soar in the underworld continent. The declining demonic mounts once again entered everyone's vision. The underworld continent was like a rotten piece of wood that had once again lit up with hope. More and more underworld continent youths participated in the demonic mounts test, and the number of demonic mounts slowly increased. Mei Xianxia secretly shook his head. In the end, they are just a group of pirates. Their eyes were red from killing, they howled and fired with all their might. The thick light pillars and light balls continued to shoot into the ground. They destroyed as much as they wanted. Everyone in the Steel Mountain continent were stunned by the scene. When they regained their senses, the fighting spirit in their hearts crumbled. The soldiers in the various strongholds surged out of the strongholds like a tide, and frantically escaped into the distance. Mei Xianxia was enlightened. Without hesitation he said coldly, "All ships prepare, we will land and fight." A blue light shot out from a tall pagoda and struck the starboard side of Mei Xianxia's ship, causing it to sway. The reason why Xiu Xian was able to follow Mei Xianxia from afar without alerting him was because they did not ride on warships. Walking through the sea of energy had become one of the unique training methods of the Shang continent. The rain in the sky became heavier, the flames in the distance soared into the sky, explosions continued to occur and the ground trembled. No one knew that he had once brought the 500 underworld continent demonic mounts, avoiding all the cities, waterways, sentry posts, and even touching the borders of the Honorable Martial Continent. The gigantic light regiment devoured the stronghold. Su Honglin was clear of his own matters, although the Steel Mountain army was well equipped, but its fighting strength was not considered strong. The Suji worldwide commerce rarely needed to use an army, and even if there were any problems, they did not need to rely on the Steel Mountain army. The Suji worldwide commerce had many allies, and had frequent business dealings with many famous armies. When they needed an army, they had many choices. This group of people were extremely agile and continuously dodged the attacks of the frigates. Beside Mei Xianxiu stood an unremarkable man. He was the honorable Martial Continent's spy hidden in the Steel Mountain continent. The reason why Mei Xianxiu was able to take down the estuary stronghold so easily was mostly due to him. He did not have a name and only had a name, Rust. The only thing that made him feel more at ease was the defense of the Steel Mountain continent. The Steel Mountain continent was the Suji worldwide commerce's main camp, and the Suji worldwide commerce had built all sorts of defensive strongholds without hesitation. Su Honglin knew why. The Steel Mountain army was rotten to the core. As long as the Suji worldwide commerce was willing to pay, all the large armies would be happy to serve. And to the rich and overbearing Suji worldwide commerce, money was never a problem. On the contrary, the Steel Mountain army that had many Su family disciples, if there were to be a large number of casualties, who knew how many clan elders and managers would run over to find trouble. But with the encouragement from the patriarch, Su Honglin knew that the situation was dire, and thought of a way to salvage the situation. He could not count on the playboys of the Steel Mountain army, so he might as well recruit another group of people to be the Steel Mountain army's reserves. But under Zhou Xian's command, he was just an ordinary soldier. In another 2 months his term would end, and he only wanted to end it as soon as possible. Recently he had been talked to by the patriarch and the clan elders many times, and the higher-ups hoped that he could reorganize the Steel Mountain army. When the fleet was only 300 m away, the commander inside the stronghold revealed a look of despair. Every day he would continuously train the reserves, but in such a short period of time, only the heavens knew how useful they could be. Although Su Honglin was serious about his work, but he knew that it was just to comfort himself. Bang bang bang. The smell of victory was so alluring. It was raining. Su Honglin raised his head. The drizzle falling from the sky landed on his face, causing him to feel cold. It's too late. Mei Xianxiu was indifferent towards Sir Rust's compliments. His gaze landed on a group of people who were going against the flow of people. Their speed was not considered fast, but in the silence they were neither fast nor slow, and slowly pushed the curtain of rain away. They were just a group of pirates, and if they were not able to deal with the enemy in a short period of time, they would fall into a dangerous situation. Once the Steel Mountain continent organized a resistance, it would be their turn to consider if they could escape unscathed. In the distant sky, a group of black dots were approaching at an astonishing speed. Bang! The intense shockwave swept out in all directions, and within a 200 m radius, all of the buildings were razed to the ground. The entire Steel Mountain army became slack, even their daily training was halved, and there were even incidents of stealing and selling military equipment. Towards all of these, Su Honglin could only close one eye. All of the pirate ships roared at the same time, and countless light auras instantly destroyed the stronghold. But he was worried that the Suji worldwide commerce would be targeted. Their pitiful fighting strength, the wealth that caused people to drool, would attract many greedy people. But such a lively scene under the dark clouds of war was actually so weak. So it was like that. The 500 underworld continent demonic mounts behind him moved the same way, holding onto their blades and moving forward without making any sound. From the density of the attacks below, Mei Xianxiu could deduce that the stronghold lacked sufficient soldiers, and their training was rather limited. Su Honglin was worried. If it was the honorable Martial Continent's fleet, the moment he gave the order, all of the attacks would stop. Once they crossed over, there would be no more obstacles. Even more light auras shot out from below. Destruction I only need to destroy. Seeing the group of people pouncing towards them, a cold glint flashed past Mei Xianxiu's eyes. This group of people who overestimate themselves are the last bit of willpower of the Steel Mountain continent. Bang bang bang. The pirates' tactics were far inferior to a true elite army. Mei Xianxiu could only do some corresponding training, allowing them to be stronger than the ordinary pirates. Regiment after regiment of flames continued to soar, and one after another, the workshops were blasted into pieces. The panicking crowd screamed and ran in all directions. Looking down from the sky, they looked like ants that were being trampled on. The continuous strongholds on the surface entered Mei Qianxiu's vision. Su Honglin's face changed. He had a bitter taste in his mouth. The thing that he was most worried about had happened. Even the Suji Worldwide Commerce's patriarch did not want to touch the misfortune. But to deal with the situation in front of him, it was enough. Bang! Sir Rust praised. General Mei's decisiveness is truly admirable. Regiment after regiment of flames would light up on the pirate warships, and one of the pirate ships would release black smoke, but none of the pirate ships launched an attack. Not everyone had the courage to let their own fleet take the risk of the stronghold's attack, and when they got close enough they would fire in unison. There were many strongholds in the Steel Mountain continent, and if they were to destroy them one by one, ignoring the fact that it was a waste of time and energy, it could possibly incite the Steel Mountain continent's citizens to rebel. The pirates quickly split into small groups, and like sharp daggers, they pierced into the Steel Mountain Army's weak formation, bringing forth a rain of warm red blood. Inside the flagship, Mei Qianxiu's cold order was like a snow-white guillotine. Fire in unison. Chapter 782. Xian brought them through one continent after another, showing no signs of stopping. Only those who had experienced it knew how difficult it was. If not for their natural arrogance, they would have given up long ago. The youths clenched their teeth and followed Xian, resisting the corrosion of the sea of energy and moving forward with difficulty. Underworld continent's demonic mounts, a name that had declined for a long time. They were like a group of black ghosts quietly approaching. Their contributions would shock the entire sacred region. Armed to the teeth, more than 90% of the underworld continent demonic mounts were under Senator. No one had a sense of security. All the forces were doing the same thing, expanding their armies and preparing for war. Even if they did not have the heart to contend for hegemony, the army in their hands would allow them to sleep more peacefully together. As the person who pulled the underworld continent's demonic mounts' reputation out from the mud, Xian's reputation in the underworld continent's demonic mounts was unprecedented. The young demonic mounts in front of him were still very young, and had much more room to grow. He carefully led this flock of young eagles, not letting them take the wrong path, not letting them waste their time in worldly affairs. They had to hike back. The sun shone on them and the sun was behind them. The pirate fleet below the sea of clouds was blocked by the thick sea of clouds, and the endless sounds of explosions came from below. The curtain of rain was mixed with flames. The roars were deafening. The underworld continent's demonic mounts smashed into the densely packed fleet. Each of them had at least 8 of those strange bronze boxes on their waist. But soon they tasted the bitterness. They were like a black seabird diving into the pure white sea of clouds. Xian squinted his eyes. His face that was covered with frost was as cold as steel. His hand that was holding onto the evening snow ocean's hilt uncontrollably tightened. What a powerful fellow. The majority of his subordinates had returned to the underworld continent to serve as instructors. Most of them had internal injuries, and because of their age their battle prowess had already been set in stone. There was no room for growth. The young demonic mounts behind him were also silent. Any of the young demonic mounts who previously suspected that Xian was just making empty promises, upon seeing the luxurious equipment that was flowing with the aura of a nouveau riche, all of them believed him. Xian could still remember the stunned expressions on the faces of those youths, as if they were on the verge of tears. Without any sound, the demonic mounts behind him started to increase their speed. Xian believed that Wuxia had the potential to become a true general. All of their blades were unsheathed. Just as they were crying tears of joy, Xian of them of returning to the Shang continent. Just as they were filled with hope that a ship would take them back, Xian mercilessly shattered the last bit of hope in their hearts. Dazzling tongues of flame appeared around the battle formation. They were like giant meteorites roaring and roaring. Xian understood very well that those who could pass the demonic mount test were all geniuses, and geniuses were naturally proud. No one knew of what the demonic of the demonic mounts wanted. Of them of demonic demoff being. Of the future of the of them. Of them. Xian held on to the hilt of evening snow ocean. His state of mind became even calmer. The sky full of flames and billowing smoke did not cause his state of mind to fluctuate much. Of the steel of the steel. For the steel. The steel would be. Of the world. Shu Xian was extremely proud in his heart. This was a brand new underworld continent demonic mounts. Now clues could already be seen. Bandits were everywhere and roving bandits were wreaking havoc. Shu Xian's expression was extremely calm. The wind that blew past him was like a blade, but he looked as though he was taking a stroll in the park. He slowly pulled out the evening snow ocean. The azure blue blade body reflecting the sunlight was extremely beautiful. The young demonic mounts were all skilled and daring people, who had never tried trekking in the sea of energy before. Anyone with a bit of knowledge could tell that the Sacred Saint Galaxy had reached a crucial juncture. The unimaginably cruel training allowed them to improve extremely quickly. After the continuous battles and tempering, the youthful look on their faces had gradually disappeared, and what replaced it was experience and steadiness. Wuxia, who was on par with Ah Leng, was a young man brimming with talent, and had gained Shu Xian's appreciation. He did not disappoint Shu Xian's expectations. Not only did he train bitterly, he was extremely interested in war formations. The Sacred Saint Galaxy was about to welcome its darkest and most chaotic period. The honorable Martial Continent's invasion of the South was destined to break the stable situation of the four great powers. Wars were no longer limited to small skirmishes. The wars between the big powers were cruel and bitter beyond imagination. The glory of the past had disappeared with the passage of time, and Shu Xian was now much calmer. More and more underworld continent youths took the initiative to participate in the cruel test of the demonic mounts, and the underworld continent's demonic mounts once again entered everyone's vision. Continent after continent, they didn't stop at all. They didn't enter any city. If they lacked supplies, they would go and rob pirates, fighting and advancing. They faced the curtain of rain, passing through the thick clouds, and arrived above the sea of clouds. Regiment after regiment of different light auras lit up from their bodies. Some of the light auras were attached to the blade bodies, some were connected to each other, some were flowing with flames, all of them were different. They were destined to be the generation that lay low, to pave the way for their descendants. They were like a piece of red-hot iron. The thick sea of clouds instantly formed a large hole, and the pirate fleet below appeared in their vision. The recruitment price of the demonic mounts was even more ridiculous, because the free underworld continent's demonic mounts were almost completely extinct. In terms of wealth, the Xiang continent was definitely not in the top 50 of the Sacred Saint Galaxy, but in terms of investing in armies, few could compare to the Xiang continent. The underworld continent was a bitter and cold place. When had they ever seen such high-grade spirit objects? Master Shu said that as long as they joined, everyone would have one. Everyone would have one? Everyone thought that they had heard wrongly. The youths all rushed forward, beaming with joy as they took down their equipment, and started to equip themselves in a flurry. When Shu Xian said calmly that he was about to start a long period of training, no one took it seriously. In the underworld continent, only the strongest soldiers had the qualifications to be called demonic mounts. Which of the young demonic mounts did not go through extremely cruel trials to obtain such a title? The light buzzing sound converged into one, sounding out in the sky above the sea of clouds. The air that they swept past produced fine ripples that refracted the sunlight. Maybe the honorable Martial Continent would be able to unify the continent, but the bigger possibility was that the Sacred Saint Galaxy would be filled with flames of war, heroes would rise up, and the battles would not end. No one had ever traveled such a long distance in the sea of energy. To use such a loss to exchange for the chance to annihilate Mei Qianxiu, it was worth it. Money was always more persuasive than empty promises. That was Shu Xian's ambition. 3 kilometers away, the underworld continent's demonic mounts borrowed the cover of the thick smoke and started to quietly climb into the sky. They were like a regiment of black clouds quietly climbing into the sky. The young demonic mounts were skeptical of his words, but when they saw the equipment of Shu Xian's troops, all of their eyes turned red. They activated their star treasures, and the energy in the sky above the sea of clouds seemed to be stirred by an invisible hand. There were also black armors with metal wings, called the Black Feather Armor with the Suji Worldwide Commerce's imprint. It was the highest grade equipment of the Suji Worldwide Commerce. Master Shu casually said that every set of armor was sold for 80 million cloud coins. No matter what, we cannot let the pirates leave this place alive. Until one day when Shu Xian said that the training was over, they realized that they had already arrived at the borders of the honorable martial continent. The myriad of training made them complain incessantly. But the true pain came from the training in the sea of energy. Borrowing the momentum, they continued to increase their speed. The blades were cheaper 60 million and were one of the highest grade black feather series. The atmosphere in the Shang continent was 10,000 times better than his situation in the past. They were trustworthy and worthy bosses. Regardless if it was Master Bing or Master Tang Chou, they were the most outstanding commanders he had ever seen, and there were no messy matters. The enemy's fleet did not activate their energy barrier. The pirates did not notice the group of specters that appeared behind them. Their gazes were attracted to the Steel Mountain Army Reserve Force, who were fighting like cornered beasts. The last layer of gauze had already been torn into pieces, and the time to reap their harvest was about to arrive. The excitement and killing instinct that caused people to tremble burned every inch of their flesh and blood. Kill. They could not believe their own eyes, but when they regained their senses, they realized what a magnificent feat they had accomplished. Zilala Shursen's heart was as calm as water, his expression was calm. The scenery around him flew past him as though he was gliding on ice, quietly gliding forward. Even Shursen could not help but admire him. If it was in the past, he would definitely turn and run against such a powerful person. But now, the strength of the opponent did not make him feel fear, but instead ignited his fighting spirit. Without saying a word, he started to increase his speed. The 500 underworld continent demonic mounts roared, "Kill!" The new underworld continent demonic mounts will become the sharpest blade in Master's hands. The sea of clouds in their vision grew larger, causing the young men's breathing to become hurried. There was nothing else that could make their blood boil. It was the first true battle. The Empyrean ice tree spears on his back were priceless outside, and were said to be sold for 100 million. Wondu. 5 spears. Shursen's eyes revealed a hint of blood. The armor on his body suddenly lit up with a dazzling gold light aura, and the evening snow ocean slashed downwards. Shursen, who continued to increase his speed, expressionlessly watched as the enemy fleet got closer and closer. His gaze was fixed on the warship of the pirate fleet that was tightly surrounded in the sky. When they were advancing at full speed, the warship was at the front, showing that Mei Xianxia did not lack courage. But now that the situation had calmed down, the warship had once again shrunk back into the middle of the other warships, showing how cautious Mei Xianxia was. Chapter 783. Sensing that someone was sizing him up, he lowered his head and saw a pale young man staring at him blankly. Shursen, who was wearing the gold feathers for the first time, was also shocked by the power of the gold feathers, but more than that, he was excited. He could not wait to rush back to the front lines and let the honorable martial continent's army witness his power. The black armor and the blade were definitely not ordinary, but it was not strange, as the Shang continent produced black gold, which was something everyone knew. It was rumored that black gold was most suitable to be used to make warship weapons. The materials that could be used to make warship weapons were all extremely expensive. To actually use black gold to make armor, what a waste. The honorable martial continent's elites were all dead, and almost all of the counterattacks were organized by the honorable martial continent's elites, because they were also the first to be attacked. The pirates were completely routed and they madly ran in all directions. The pirate ship had just moved a few hundred feet when a 200 feet long saber light descended from the sky, sinking deep into the ship. The pirate ship instantly exploded into a floating fireball. A soul object. Mei Xianxia could not help but be surprised by the boldness of the enemy commander who ambushed him. The underworld continent's demonic mounts that smashed into the pirate fleet exploded, splitting into 3 and entering the pirate fleet. Could it be, under the constant nourishment of the Sword Forest stronghold, absorbing countless of energy, it successfully leveled up to a gold armor, and its name was changed to Gold Feather. The enemy's general was very eye-catching. Among the black figures, Shursen, who was covered in dazzling golden light, looked like a god of war. Mei Xianxia was a little surprised. There weren't many enemies, at most 500 to 600. How could 500 or 600 people be so ferocious? Even in the honorable martial continent, 500 to 600 men against a group of pirates was not something an ordinary army could accomplish. Numerous black silhouettes interweaved in the sky. These black silhouettes were like a group of nimble black bats that suddenly gathered and scattered. they drifted about in a strange and unpredictable manner. The sudden attack caused Mei Xianxia's face to change. Enemy attack. There must be some unique way. Such powerful warriors, armed to the teeth, every one of them was a killing machine. It was not strange for Mei Xianxia to recognize spirit objects. In terms of spirit objects, no place had more than the Honorable Martial Continent. The Honorable Martial Continent's research on spirits represented the highest level of the current Sacred Saint Galaxy, and even the Honorable Martial Continent's martial technique system was related to spirits. Mei Xianxia's face was as white as a sheet, his hands and feet cold. That was a soul object. He only needed to destroy these pirate ships, and the scattered pirates would be like turtles in a jar with no way to escape. This was a true elite force. The fleet was covered in a sea of fire. In the sky, the pirate ships turned into huge balls of fire floating and burning. The first target of the enemy's attack was the outermost pirate ship. What was amazing was the strength of the opponent's attack. The surrounding pirate ships were destroyed and lost their ability to fly, but at the same time they did not crash. But before this group of enemies armed to the teeth, the pirates were like beggars. Instinctive fear took over his mind. It was as if he had received a heavy blow to his head. His face was filled with confusion and fear. His mind went blank. He was intelligent, but he had always been a staff officer. Now that he had come to the southern domain, he was a commander. In the past, his only opponents were pirates. With his intellect, adding the elites of the Honorable Martial Continent as the backbone, against the other pirates he could easily crush them. It was rare for him to face such a difficult battle, and this was the first time he was in such a dangerous situation. One of the pirate ships had half of its stern hanging on it, and was frantically trying to escape. Seeing the pirates being cut down like vegetables, Mei Xianxia's hands trembled. It had to be said, although he was the enemy, he still admired the enemy's commander. In terms of reaction to danger, he could not even compare to the pirates under him. Without even looking, Zhou Xian's gold wings spread out, and his body soared into the sky. Amidst the whistling sounds, one after another, figures shot out from the battlefield like black lightning, soaring into the sky and joining in behind him. Sunlight shone through the holes in the clouds, enveloping the entire battlefield. This sort of inflexible and mechanical tactic was not efficient, but it caused Mei Xianxia to feel fear. It required an extremely high level of coordination, an astonishing level of discipline, and a terrifying level of execution. The enemy's commander. Goldwing's golden light was mystical. All of the blade auras were as fast as lightning. With a flash of golden light, they would pierce through the ship. How did the enemy escape my detection? Mei Xianxia even suspected that the entire battlefield was under the enemy's commander's control. They all rushed to the cockpit. Mei Xianxia's breathing became rough, but when his gaze landed on the multicolored light auras around the black armored soldiers, it was as though he had been struck by a technique and was dumbstruck. Armors were an extremely unique type of star treasures, and out of the same grade of star treasures, armors were stronger than other star treasures. Even in Heaven's Road, there were only a few gold armors, which only appeared in the 12 palaces, and the other constellations could only produce silver armors. The pirates that remained on the ship completely ignored the pirates that had already disembarked. The Honorable Martial Continent elites on the ship wanted to control the situation, but facing the berserk pirates, they did not even make a splash. The fear of death caused the normally cowardly pirates to become completely crazy. Anyone who blocked them from escaping was their enemy. They swarmed forward with red eyes, submerging the Honorable Martial Continent elites that tried to stop them. The purpose of this was to use these floating balls of fire to prevent the other pirate ships from escaping. The whistling that filled the sky seemed to have stopped at that moment. The incessant explosions seemed to have disappeared, as though time had frozen at that moment. The underworld continent's demonic mounts gathered in the blink of an eye, and disappeared into the flames and smoke. The rising fireball enveloped the warship. Fuck, hurry up. They were also spirit objects, but the war had just begun. It was under such a rigid method of dispersing, gathering, and rushing that the sky transformed into a sea of flames. One after another, gigantic fireballs illuminated the sky red. The thick layer of clouds was melted by the rising heat wave. Mei Xianxia, who had just regained his consciousness, did not even have the time to speak, when a gigantic force came over, and his body was flung up to the ceiling. Bang! He smashed into the ceiling, feeling dizzy. He tried his best to maintain his composure, and from the corner of his eyes he saw the back of the ship and was stunned. Mei Qianxiu's tactics were outstanding, and after calming down he understood the enemy's intentions. But even with the disparity in strength, the enemy did not have the intention to fight him alone. Mei Qianxiu looked around and very quickly found it. One of the 6 great armors of the Sword Forest stronghold, the silver armor that originated from Aquila constellation, Silver Feather. The armor that looked like it was forged from gold, releasing a dazzling gold light, to the point that he was unable to see the figure inside the gold light. The tyrannical and terrifying aura, along with the needle-like gold light, spread out in all directions. A gigantic fireball spewed out from the inside of the warship. The dazzling white flames were like a monster from hell, quickly expanding and devouring the entire warship. Truly powerful. Is he Mei Qianxiu? I never expected him to be so young. The back of the ship disappeared. How is that possible? Although they were few in numbers, but every single one of them were elites, at least at the level of a silver saint, causing Mei Qianxiu to be stunned. When he saw the equipment on the soldiers, even Mei Qianxiu, who was born in the honorable martial continent, could not help but gasp. Every time Evening Snow Ocean released a blade, a 50 wide white line would sweep past. It was a raging blade aura formed from the convergence of surging energy. Annihilation. Only when the enemy wants to annihilate them would they make such a choice. How can there be such a powerful spirit object in the world? Mei Qianxiu's eyes revealed a look of shock. He had never seen such a powerful spirit object before. The gold light was so congealed that it looked like molten gold, flowing on the surface of the armor. It was an entire set of armor from head to toe. The gold helmet was shaped like an eagle's head. The gold mask covered the enemy's face completely, only revealing a pair of ice-cold eyes. On the back of the armor, there was a pair of gold wings as though they were made from thin layers of gold. It was extremely beautiful. Zhou Xian felt that it was a pity, but without hesitation Evening Snow Ocean gently waved his blade, and a blade aura instantly tore through space, piercing through Mei Qianxiu's body and entering the warship. Turn. Quickly turn. Zhou Xian did not care about the pirates that were fleeing in all directions. The scattered pirates could be handed over to the local guards of the Steel Mountain continent. He simply walked to the back of the warship and admired the battlefield. Since I am powerless to turn the situation around, I might as well admire the enemy's performance. I am extremely curious about them. I just flew into the Steel Mountain continent, but they already followed me. There is only one possibility: they have always been secretly following me. I actually did not sense them at all. I have been extremely careful and did not slack off at all, but I still did not find any traces of the enemy. Knowing that he had no hope of escaping, Mei Qianxiu calmed down. He took a deep breath and suppressed the fighting intent in his heart. With Evening Snow Ocean in his hands, Zhou Xian, who was dressed in gold feathers, swept through the battlefield. The white pirates had been trained by the honorable martial continent, and were stronger than any ordinary army. Mei Qianxiu had carefully selected this batch of white pirates, although they did not have high attainments in tactics, but their individual strengths were not weak. After observing for a moment, the surprise on Mei Qianxiu's face disappeared, and what replaced it was seriousness. His pupils dilated, a blade aura that was over 30 long, with a terrifying whistling sound that caused people's scalps to go numb, smashed heavily into the pirate ship in front of his warship. The sturdy hull of the ship was like a piece of paper, and countless of wood splinters flew everywhere. My performance is also terrible. The experienced pirates might have low attainments in fighting and were undisciplined, but in terms of escaping, they were much stronger than Mei Qianxiu, who was a military general. All of the pirates had lost control, and only had one thought in their minds: escape. Before he finished speaking, an intense explosion engulfed his words. Mei Qianxiu, who had lost his soul, sat down on the deck, his mouth filled with bitterness. Pirates were ultimately pirates. If it was an army of the honorable martial continent with strict discipline, he could still try to retaliate, but now there was no hope. But even in the honorable martial continent that was famed for spirit objects, they were not extravagant to the point where everyone had one. They formed groups of 3 to 5, sometimes gathering and sometimes separating like flowing water, but every time they attacked an enemy, they would regroup at high speeds, even if the enemy was only one person. He is also a genius young man. The blue javelin on his back looked familiar, and Mei Xiao suddenly thought about the Empyrean ice tree spears that had suddenly appeared on the market. Bang! The energy undulation caused by the gold feathers and evening snow ocean was like a tsunami. Countless of energy traces appeared in the sky, and the thick sea of clouds started to boil. Chapter 784. Damn it! Ling Su's orange pupils were ignited. At the moment he did not have any other thoughts in his mind and only had one thought. Hearing that, Ling Su became even more depressed. Ling Su did not care about cursing anymore. He used his silver spear like a rod, and started smashing the soldiers on the ground. Just as he was about to throw the silver frost sheep horn seal back, he suddenly heard the sound of the wind chimes, causing him to be startled. The other party did not have any expression, but for some reason, Ling Su could feel the disdain from the other party. The short training only stuffed the most basic knowledge into Ling Su's mind, and only the heavens knew how much he had left. It was a blatant disdain. He lacked patience, had a fiery temper. If he did not agree, he would raise his spear. His desire to fight was too strong and he was unable to make the most logical choice. Maybe he was more suited to be the vanguard and not a military general. But he did not have enough manpower, so he could only bite the bullet. The power that was restraining him was extremely strong. Ling Su tried to struggle, but he could not move at all. Not only was he not surprised, his face revealed joy. That's right, it's like that. He suddenly thought about the time when he was learning the Aries Spear of Stars, and fell into a similar illusion. In that illusion, those blurry figures had demonstrated to him what the real Aries Spear of Stars was. Ling Su, who was in a mess, sat down, placed his silver spear on his legs, and stared at the gigantic light regiment in the sea of energy. It was not easy to traverse the sea of energy on foot. Yu Qingyi and the rest were fine. They had star treasures and trained diligently and often swam in the sea of energy. All of the newly recruited soldiers had never experienced such things before, and were all exhausted and fell to the ground. Seeing that, Ling Su held onto the silver frost sheep horn seal in his right hand, and placed it on his left palm. The clear sound of the wind chimes seemed to have passed through time and arrived in front of him. Layers of ripples, with the sheep horn wind chimes as the center, started to spread out. Ling Su, who was focused on the sheep horn wind chimes, did not notice that the silver frost mount insignia that he had placed on his palm was currently lighting up with a faint light aura. Such a strange thing naturally caused people's hair to stand. In the blink of an eye they were on a hill. Seeing the messy group of people in front of him, Ling Su laughed bitterly in his heart. Compared to the legendary silver frost mounts, they were not even fit to carry their shoes. If teacher knows that I have ruined the silver frost mount's name, who knows if he will crawl out of his coffin in anger. Looking at the loosely scattered people in front of him, his face darkened. The troops under Crane were always neat and tidy and were pleasing to the eye. Although the troops under his command could barely be considered neat, they were like a loose and crispy biscuit that would shatter with a little force. The silver frost goat horn seal's design was simple. It had two goat horns that were as straight as swords, and on the seal was the insignia of the silver frost mount. Get up. Ling Su used the disciples of the Southern Islands Yu family as the backbone. In the end, it was the inheritance of Aries constellation and everyone walked the same path. The Yu family only had a few hundred disciples and relying on them alone was not enough to support an army, so he chose a few people with decent strength, who trained in spear techniques to fill in the gaps, and barely managed to pull up an army. Sai, Yu Qingyi and the rest could not help but take in a breath of cold air. All of their faces turned white. What the hell is that? Alright, the only method he could think of was the silver frost mounts. He racked his brains to recall carefully the part of the silver frost mount's inheritance that he had neglected. But no matter how he tried, it was still a blur. Damn it, nothing is going well. The brand new army was called the Silver Frost Mounts and that was the only name he could think of. There were only 50 people on the small slope, but the aura released by the 50 of them far surpassed the rookies behind him. The 50 riders did not make any sound. They sat on the sword-horned snow goat's back and did not move an inch. Ling Su, who revered individual battles, did not have any interest in the silver frost goat horn seal. But at the moment when he was forced into a corner, he suddenly remembered that he still had such a thing. A ripple spread through the entire camp. White robes and silver spears. Riding on a goat with two horns that looked like swords. but underneath the white robes, it was not a living thing but a regiment of mist. Their faces were completely covered in mist without any facial features or eyes. He stared at Yu Qingyi with an unkind expression. Yu Qingyi shrunk his head and retreated to the side. They had trained with Ling Su in spear techniques, and were clear of the master's temper. If they were to anger the master, he would stab them. The familiar sound of the sheep horn wind bells came out from the other side of the slope. Although it was his first time as a military general and the current situation was not surprising, but to the prideful Ling Su, for him to admit defeat and admit that he was weak was worse than killing him. All of you get up. No reaction? My army is also called the Silver Frost Mounts. It cannot be too weak. Kill them. That's right, it was disdain. Ling Su's face swelled red. The naked disdain was like a whip that struck his face. The random whipping finally saved the group of rookies who were in a state of panic. Compared to them, the Yu family disciples' reactions were much better. After all, they had experienced fighting before. But the newly recruited soldiers were all rookies. Asshole. Since when was he looked down on by others? He had never thought that there would be a day where he would create an army. The march was not going smoothly. Ignoring the fact that they were weak, they were moving at a tortoise's speed. He wanted to kill all of them and then kill his way to the honorable martial continent by himself. The majority of the army's marching speed was slowed down by the rookies, and became as slow as a tortoise. But Ling Su had tried it before. Regardless of how he scolded and whipped them, they were still strong. The scenery around them started to distort. Everyone seemed to have been struck by a technique, and were shocked to realize that they were unable to move. Ling Su himself felt the same. Ever since he left the Shang continent, his mood had always been bad. Ling Su stared at them for a long time, but there was no reaction, causing him to be extremely disappointed. The soldiers around him were completely immersed in shock. They were just in the sea of energy. How did they suddenly become a completely foreign place? Everyone's eyes involuntarily revealed a deep sense of fear. Such an unimaginable event caused everyone's hair to stand on end. Bing requested for him and Crane to each form an army. Although he did not want to admit it, but he knew that he had inherited the legacy of the Silver Frost Mounts. It was just that he was only concerned about the martial techniques related to the Silver Frost Mounts, and was not interested in the army. As a rookie general, Ling Su was definitely not qualified. Alright, let's not think so much. With such a reaction speed, if it was any other time, Ling Su would not say a word, and would definitely whip each of them 10 times. But at the moment, Ling Su did not care about them. He stared straight at the small slope in front of him. One after another, white-robed silver spear-wielding figures appeared on the small slope. Although the knights' faces were covered in mist, but Ling Su could clearly feel that their gazes were on him. The vast light spots in the sea of energy that were as vast as the stars disappeared. The empty ground appeared beneath his feet. The ground continued to extend like mud. It sank down to form a lake and extended upwards to form mountain peaks. A clear silver frost mount insignia was imprinted on his palm. If I had known, I would have used the disciples of the 5 southern island families. Ling Su was slightly regretful. But the regret disappeared in the blink of an eye. Other than the Yu family, the other families did not use spears, and he did not know how to command them. He only picked the Yu family disciples. The other 4 families were all given to Crane and let Crane have a headache. The silver frost sheep horn seal had been in his hands for a long time, but he did not care much about it, because it was the Silver Frost Mounts army seal. Initially, when they were splitting the loot, Tang Tian gave him the silver frost sheep horn seal. It was because he had a slight connection with it. The 50 knights on the small slope raised the silver spears in their hands, urging the sword-horned snow sheep beneath them, and advanced forward in small steps. Their movements were pleasing to the eye. Even when advancing, the troops were as neat as knives. What do I do? Ling Su held onto his spear and smacked his own head, causing the surrounding soldiers to swallow their saliva, and immediately sat further away. Just that. As expected, it's the same thing again. Prepare for battle. Ling Su placed it in front of his eyes and thought about it, but realized that he did not know where to start. The sheep horn wind bells on the silver spear moved without any wind. Almost everyone looked at Ling Su because the white-clothed silver spear, the entire outfit was exactly the same as Ling Su. Even the sheep horn wind bells on the silver spear were exactly the same. Ling Su's body moved, and the restriction on his body suddenly disappeared without a trace. No. I have to think of a way. If I continue like this, I can ignore the reputation of the Silver Frost Mounts, but if I lose the war because of me. Upon thinking about Crazy Tang's look of disdain, Ling Su felt that he would definitely go crazy. Yu Qingyi was equally shocked, but when he heard Ling Su's warning, he suppressed the panic in his heart and struggled to stand up. How do I use this thing? He took out the silver frost sheep horn seal and played with it. If not for Yu Qingyi and his subordinates, the situation would have been even worse. Yu Qingyi and the rest were born in the southern islands, and were extremely familiar with armies since young. Suddenly he thought of something: the silver frost sheep horn seal. Since it is called a seal, then it should be used to stamp something, Ling Su thought uncertainly. But where should I stamp it? Ling Su looked left and right. The soldiers around him had long fled far away, and there was actually no one within a 30 m radius around him. Furthermore, bang! The flustered and exasperated Ling Su shot himself in the head. A gentle breeze blew past, and the faint sound of the bell immediately caused his hair to stand. He suddenly shot up and shouted, "Prepare for battle!" Ling Su roared as though he was facing a great enemy. Yu Qingyi saw that Ling Su was unhappy and consoled him. "Master, do not worry, it will always be like this at the start." He thought about the Silver Frost Mounts and his heart moved. How did the Silver Frost Mounts struggle in the past? A few of the bolder soldiers also stood up in a scattered manner. Chapter 785. Taiji and Ah Si Ming looked at each other, revealing looks of shock. The late Spring tribe was not a small tribe. Its strength was not inferior to the two heroes of the northern lands. The reason why no royal court was established was because there were many heroes in this region, unlike the barren and desolate northern lands where there were only two heroes. Ah Exin pointed at Mu Chuanye's left chest and said, "Cut it here." With such a terrifying army staring at them from the dark, they would definitely not be able to eat or sleep in peace. When Ah Si Ming said this, his voice trembled slightly. He had dealt with Mu Chunai many times and they both knew each other's limits. Mu Chuanye's strength was definitely not inferior to his. Mu Chunai was murdered and the Mu Chun tribe was massacred. The murderer was so powerful that it was terrifying. Xiao Mang's expression was a little strange. "Something happened. You better come and take a look." "I'm not nervous." Crane revealed a smile. "I just want to know what I need to do next." Ah Xian's face was indifferent, while Taiji and the rest in front of him revealed looks of worship. At this moment, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Xiao Mang walking over with a large door-sized knife, and his whole body stiffened. He felt that it was too early to say these words. This bust-to-breasts woman was also in existence on the same level as him. In the past, the Ophiuchus constellation was also an extremely hard nut to crack. Due to the cold weather, the corpse had already been frozen into a block of ice. Everything about the corpse was still intact. Everyone's expression changed slightly. Mu Chuanye's heart had already exploded, and a faint white sword mark ran through it. Taiji nodded his head. "We will spread the news of Mu Jixia's army barging into the savage continent and the massacre of the Evening Spring tribe, and let them have a taste of what it means to be unable to move an inch." Even after 10 days, this sword scar still emitted a faint white light. It was indescribably demonic and terrifying. It was Mu Jixia. "I'm sure that no one in the entire sanctum has more experience than me in such a big battle. Mu Chunai, he's dead too." In the ranking of the military leaders, the first in defense was Jia Ya of the 5 Honorable Martial Tigers, while the second was the Eastern Region Gold Continent's Song Jiza. This sword mark that released white light exuded a strong aura unique to light energy. Looking at the desolate wilderness in front of them and the corpses that littered the mountains, everyone's expression turned grave. The two looked at each other and smiled. Well, she was actually more savage. He patted Crane's shoulder and spoke in an old and experienced manner. "You have to trust me on this. I'm sure that no one in the entire sacred region has more experience than me in such a big battle." Ah Si Ming continued, "We still need to find that star door. If not, our savage continent will become their backyard, where they can come and go as they please." "You're always so confident." Bing straightforwardly nodded his head. "Then let's cut it short. Your mission is to guard Xiaoyu An's rear and help him share some of the pressure. When necessary, you will be required to support him. Xie Yuan has swept the honorable martial continent's face. They will definitely take revenge." Crane laughed. These words make me feel like I have not lived my 10,000 years in vain. Xin would never underestimate any enemy, and the enemy was Wuxia. Crane took the cup and smiled. Thank you, he said in a low voice. About 10 days. Crane stood up and said straightforwardly, I will set off now. Ming flipped over the corpses on the ground and stood up. It's the late spring tribe. Since when did the savage continent have such a strong tribe? Taiji and Ming were both overlords, and thought that even if they were not the strongest in the savage continent, they could still be ranked amongst the strongest. It was not an easy task for anyone to kill them. But one day they realized that the savage continent actually had terrifying existences that could easily wipe them out, and the shock in their hearts was unimaginable. Noticing that Crane was sitting upright, Bing flicked his cigarette and laughed. Relax, little Crane, the situation is not that bad. His loose black gown accentuated his tall and slender figure, his handsome and flawless appearance, his warm and gentle temperament. Regardless of where he stood, he was still the most dazzling person. Crane laughed. As the commander-in-chief, such depressing words should not come out of your mouth. A brazen thought suddenly surfaced in his mind. They were currently in the hinterlands of the savage continent, and were extremely far from the Wei Yiguan continent. They had never thought of the honorable Martial continent as their enemy, and that was the reason. Once the armies of the honorable Martial continent stepped onto the savage continent's soil, they would be attacked by the various tribes along the way. Regardless of how good Wuxia's relationship with the other tribes was, no tribe would allow them to step onto their own land so easily, for example Shangbei's Blackwater tribe. Hearing that, Taiji's fingertips swept across the position Xin was pointing at without hesitation. Qi Muchunye's corpse was split into two. The Ocean Guardian stronghold was a grade of stronghold, and was guarded by Xie Yuan, the famous general hailed as the third best defender under the heavens. Anyone with a bit of rationality would definitely not fight to the death because it would mean that they would have to pay a huge price. To think that Wuxia wanted to conquer the savage continent with just one army, that was a joke. There are two reasons. Bing sat up straight. Firstly, he is Goqing Wendao. Goqing Wendao is a true attacking maniac. I have studied his battles before and he is most proficient in attacking crazily. Secondly, they do not have time. If they do not quickly open up the situation when the various southern region families regain their senses, they will lose their fear, and at that time the southern region will become a meat grinder. Goqing Wendao does not have many choices. He needs to push forward with a thunderous momentum. Only then can he intimidate the heroes of the southern region. Weird, isn't Wuxia guarding the Wei Yiguan continent? Why did he suddenly appear here? Xiaoman had a look of suspicion. Crane's mission was different from Ling Su's. Crane seemed to have understood something. My mission is to help Xie Yuan as long as possible? The Honorable Martial Continent. It was done by the Honorable Martial Continent. Taiji's face was extremely ugly. Bing laughed out loud. He did not care. You guys have never fought before. In such a large-scale war, preserving your strength is always the first choice. Power is like a card. With a card in your hand you can choose to fight or not. If you don't even have a card, then you have nothing. The door-plank broadsword that he expected did not descend. Taiji sniffed. The air was still filled with the faint smell of blood. He bent down and grabbed a piece of dark red soil. He rubbed his fingers, causing the soil to turn into dust that flowed out from the gaps between his fingers. The two of them were after all heroes, and with Xian's slight revelation, the two of them immediately understood the Honorable Martial Continent's intentions. You don't look like a military general at all. Bing used his usual lazy tone to tease. He bit on the cigarette in his mouth and poured a cup of water for Crane. That's right. Ming said hatefully. The Honorable Martial Continent has always been coveting our territory. They can't wait for us to become more chaotic. Seeing that the savage continent is about to end its chaos, they cannot sit still anymore, and will definitely think of ways to destroy the savage continent's unity. Xin squatted down and inspected Mu Chunye's corpse, which did not have any injuries. Tang Tian and Ling Su had long been jealous of this point. Xin kept his mischievous smile and stood up. Taiji and Ming looked at each other, then followed. That's right. Bing revealed a look of praise. Crane's intelligence was unparalleled among them, and talking to intelligent people truly saved him energy. Do your best to conserve your strength, do your best to waste time. If you can exhaust a bit of the enemy's strength, that would be even better. He had a premonition that the simplest methods would only be of limited use. We need to find them, if not everyone can forget about having a good night's sleep. Ah Si Ming said fiercely, but his eyes revealed a trace of fear. I'm afraid that he has found a star door that leads to the savage continent's interior. Ah Xin immediately thought of something and spoke quickly. Deep into the enemy's interior, their goal is to take down their leader. If that's the case, they definitely do not have many people. If they do, they will not be able to hide their tracks. But their strength is definitely elite. To be able to easily wipe out the Muchun tribe, they should be Mu Jixia's direct subordinate army. Mu Jixia is also a fierce man. For the sake of stopping the savage continent's unity, he did not hesitate to take the risk himself. Ah Si Ming's face turned green, his eyes flashed with rage. Mu Jixia, only Mu Jixia can kill Mu Chunyi. The honorable martial continent has invaded the savage continent. Ah Xin remained silent as he listened to the conversation between the two of them. Tai Ji sneered. That's right, as long as we kill young miss, all hope will be destroyed and the savage continent will once again return to the dark era. Even if I have to risk this old man's life, I will definitely not let him succeed. For the enemy to be able to easily wipe out the Muchun tribe, that also meant that the enemy had the ability to kill either one of the duo heroes of the north. Crane placed the teacup down and thought about it, then spoke cautiously. I'm not too used to it. In the past I did not have much contact with them and am cramming at the last minute. I do not know how effective it will be. They're coming for us. Ah Xin, who had been silent the entire time, suddenly spoke up. But that did not mean that he could only passively wait for them. Ah Xian's face was filled with smiles and went forward to flatter. Aya Xiaoman, you're here. Bing sat down and placed his leg on the table. He puffed out a smoke ring and asked casually, how do you feel? Bing also stood up and sent Crane to the door, then suddenly said, if we cannot do it, escape is the most important thing. Ah Xin looked at the dark clouds in the sky and said calmly and confidently, because we have the possibility of unifying the savage continent. After a moment they found their target, a middle-aged man's corpse. His breathing had long been severed, his eyes still wide open, filled with unwillingness. Going against the Ocean Guardian's stronghold head-on? Crane was suspicious. Aren't they worried about casualties? The Light Tiger was the leader of the 5 tigers, a person who had 20 years of patience to infiltrate before they attacked. They would definitely have meticulous and detailed arrangements, so it was impossible for him to not think of such a problem. It's better than nothing. Bing laughed out loud. A pity Crazy Tang is not here. If not, we can grab him to lead the team. It would definitely be interesting. I really want to see his expression when he goes crazy, haha. The two of them thought about something and immediately looked around. His words immediately attracted the attention of the two people. Chapter 786. Countless of lightning snakes suddenly lit up in the clouds and converged at his fingers. It was as though he was immobilized. He remained motionless, his eyes staring out of the cabin. The wildness in his long and narrow eyes had disappeared without a trace. His expression froze on his face, his blood slowly draining away, becoming as pale as paper. Zhou Xian smiled. As long as Jizai is serious, then everything is fine. Everyone laughed out loud. He slowly opened his fist. Countless of law threads converged at his right fist, and in the blink of the eye, his right fist was as bright as the sun. Sharp Wind City was lit up as though it was daytime, and a terrifying aura enveloped the entire city. Occasionally, there would be people who would raise their heads to look at the sky, but most of them were used to it. In the past few days, such a scene had happened countless of times. In a single night, the sun would rise a few times, and every time that happened, the terrifying pressure would sweep through the entire city like a storm. His state of mind seemed to be flying, passing through Sharp Wind City, like the light released by the sun that had leapt out of the horizon, sweeping through the vast land. The sudden turn of events left everyone scratching their heads in confusion. Suddenly Jizai's laughter stopped. Suddenly he stopped. Someone was flying towards him. Tang Tian was not anxious at all. There were no shortcuts to the accumulation of power. People were always passionate about sudden enlightenment, but very few people saw the accumulation before the sudden enlightenment, and only when the water is full will it overflow. Zhou Xian raised the wine cup in his hand towards Jizai. If not for the importance of this matter, why would I dare to trouble brother Jizai? But seeing that brother Jizai is making a move, my heart is at ease. The flowing tassel boat was Zhou Qian's most beloved boat. The golden yellow wooden boat was one of the most famous treasured boats in the entire Xin domain. It was completely made out of a rare wood called golden tassel tree. The boat was 220 m long and was decorated extravagantly. Zhou Qian had spent countless of money to hire the best craftsmen, and used all of the rare and precious materials. That's great. The flowing tassel boat truly lives up to its name. Jizai said leisurely, I just don't know if the ghost face mask is as powerful as the rumors say, but I hope it doesn't disappoint me. That would be too boring. A large golden boat flew in the sky. As though he had heard a joke, he started to laugh out loud. The 5 fingers on his left hand moved nimbly, and the void spirit seal quickly formed. After a few days of trial and error, he was already quite experienced. He even realized that these law threads were not real threads. It was composed of countless tiny specks of light, and the specks of light were black and white. He still had not figured out what these black and white spots of light were. Brother Su's flowing tassel boat is truly a top-notch enjoyment. The one who spoke was around 26 or 27 and was called Jizai. Jizai was handsome with long and narrow eyes, thin lips, fair skin, and a bewitching temperament. He came to the layer of clouds, pointed out with his finger, and gently moved a drooping law thread. Tang Tian carefully sensed every change in his body. Jizai was surprised. Could it be that masters think that ghost face mask and his Ursa Major Null division will threaten the middle courtyard? Only the maidservants behind Jizai covered their mouths and were shocked to discover that a puddle of water was rapidly spreading on Jizai's snow-white robe at a speed visible to the naked eye. The unprecedented experience caused Tang Tian to be extremely focused. He felt as though he was part of the world, but he was extremely calm. He carefully sensed the changes in the world, which he had been doing for the past few days. In that moment, everyone put down the wine cups in their hands and listened attentively. His body moved, he gently stepped onto the spatial law thread, and his figure suddenly disappeared. 3 kilometers away, he appeared without any warning. At the end, the liquid-like light aura extended from the back of Tang Tian's head and flowed down, enveloping his entire face. Jizai squinted his eyes and said leisurely, Brother Su's trip, I believe it is not just the Su family's intention, right? Rumble. Tang Tian felt that the state was like an awakening. He thought about Barbara and the rest's awakened army. He did not know if the word awakened meant that, but as long as he felt that it was fine. The light aura was like an armor, causing him to think of the armor. Since it came from the God Fist, then let's call it the God Armor. Together it will form its name. We are waiting for Brother Ji to display his might. If we were to be scared out of our wits by the enemy, that would not be good. Awakened God Armor. He thought in his mind, could it be that Jizai has some hidden illness that suddenly flared up? The changes in the world were endless. Although the world in front of him was only black and white, it was rich and colorful, waiting for him to explore. He stretched his back, his face filled with enjoyment. Under the control of 10 martial artists who were proficient in wind laws, the boat was as light as a feather, borrowing the wind to move. Its speed was extremely fast. And the people controlling the boat were all experts. Even at such a high speed, the boat did not shake at all. Bewitching blade Jizai, who dares to go against me? Hearing that, Zhou Xian pretended to be worried. Brother Jizai, later on, you better not introduce yourself, if not you will scare them away, and we came from so far away. What if we only see them running away? At that moment the world seemed to have changed. Jizai thought about it while the others remained silent. The light that converged from the God Fist in his right hand was like molten metal, spreading along Tang Tian's arm to his entire body. The dazzling light aura became much dimmer, but it was still extremely bright. It enveloped Tang Tian's entire body as though it was giving Tang Tian an armor. From the initial shock, everyone became used to it. They had to admit that humans had a tenacious ability to adapt to their environment. Zhou Xian nodded his head. Brother Jizai's eyes are like torches as expected. You were able to see the profoundness in it. Although my family has some relations with the Galloping Horse City's Lu family, but this trip is the intention of the masters. The Su family was an old family in the 4 main cities, and naturally had a deep foundation. And Zhou Xian, as one of the clan elders that held power in the Su family, was skilled in politics, and knew how to enjoy life, thus his connections were extremely wide. No one refuted Jizai's arrogant words, and everyone felt that it was only right and proper. Su Qing was extremely pleased in his heart and laughed out loud. To be praised by Brother Jizai, my flowing tassel boat was not built in vain. He was emotionless, he was like a calm spectator, watching the colorful world being swallowed by the black and white, returning to its origin. Whether or not Ghost Face Mask is Ancestor Li's inheritor is not important. Su Qing looked around and said, the Sin domain has been around for hundreds of years and has finally evolved into the 4 main cities. After so many years, everyone has been living well, and the higher-ups want us to continue living like this and no one will cause trouble for us. Compared to the past, his horizons were many times stronger, and his understanding of power had far surpassed that of the past. Martial techniques, laws, mechanisms, etc., all of them were internal and external. The so-called internal was the unearthing of a human's innate potential, and the so-called external was the understanding and use of natural laws. The two could even become one because humans were a part of nature. That was why every form of power in the end would return to the same place. He extended his finger and gently touched the law line that extended to the horizon. It was the wind law line, and his body floated up like a feather. Following the rising air currents, he floated upwards. The formless spirit technique of the Golem 5 gestures was the hand seal he was most familiar with, and using the God Fist to activate the formless spirit seal, it was as though he had opened a window. It was as though he was possessed for days and nights. He did not care about the outside world at all. The Sacred Saint Galaxy's intense battle situation did not affect Tang Tian at all. Su Qing then sighed, speaking about it, this ghost face mask is truly strange. Lu Tianwen died by his hands, Xian was defeated by him, and now Sharp Wind City has fallen into his hands. All of them are experts on the list of powerhouses. Why can't they take down a mere ghost face mask? Although Jizai was all smiles and looked extremely calm, but in his long and narrow eyes, one could faintly see a trace of self-disdain. But he was not muddled by the compliments and turned to Su Qing. How much does Brother Su know about Ghost Face Mask's background? When the others heard that, they all nodded their heads. The items on the boat were all expensive and rare items. The wine and snacks were so exquisite that people could not bear to eat them, and the soft coat that they were sitting on was actually made from a complete blackwater otter's fur. Blackwater otters lived in extremely cold places and were scarce in numbers. Furthermore, they were extremely vigilant and difficult to capture. Thus their fur was extremely expensive. Blackwater otter's fur that was in perfect condition was extremely rare, but there were at least 50 of them on the boat. Su Qing laughed sinisterly. The only person who can fight in the Ursa Major Null Division is only Ghost Face Mask. What kind of waves can he create? The higher-ups are just worried that some ambitious people will take the opportunity to create trouble. So the best way is to nip these seeds in the cradle. That's right. Brother Jizai. Su Qing probed. That's right. Someone else replied. These people are truly an army, they follow orders strictly, even if they are prisoners they are different from others. But speaking of which, it is strange, all of them are unyielding, they are all good men. Jizai laughed. Thank you for your kind words, Brother Su. The colorful world gradually lost its colors and became black and white. The originally clear and perceptive airflow also disappeared, and what replaced it were the messy yet orderly lines, which were law threads. The first time Tang Tian saw the drifting law threads, he was overly excited and immediately broke away from the state. It was a fusion of God Fist, Demon 6 seals, unique critical points, and a brand new fighting technique created by Tang Tian. Jizai knew that Su Qing was trying to provoke him, but he was originally a wild person and did not avoid it and sneered, "List of powerhouses? Are you considered experts just because you are on the list of powerhouses?" Not much. Su Qing kept the smile on his face. Speaking about Ghost Face Mask, we have to talk about the Ursa Major Null Division. All of them are in the same batch and were sent ashore by the tide, numbering around 4,000 to 5,000. I have never heard of a place called the Ursa Major Continent in the Sacred Saint Galaxy, and I do not know if it is a new powerhouse that came out in the past 200 to 300 years. But the name Ursa Major Null Division sounds like an army. Tang Tian's awakened god armor released dazzling lightning auras, making him look like a thunder god descending to the mortal world. Just as he was about to warn the others, he was shocked to discover that his perception seemed to be firmly glued to the other party. Following that, the air around him seemed to solidify, and his laws also began to solidify. All of his perception of the outside world was firmly absorbed by the other party. From the moment they boarded the ship until now, the demon hadn't said a word. His body was not burly and his entire body was wrapped tightly. The style of the armor on his body was very strange. It was like a layer of molten iron without any style to speak of. Too ruthless. It emitted a faint light, bright but not dazzling. Deathly silence. The armored devil stepped on the blood-soaked carpet and slowly walked toward him. The thick silver light disappeared as quickly as it came. Other than leaving an afterimage and 2 large holes on the left and right of the people's field of vision, the confused people thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them. But before they could fly more than 10 feet they fell to the ground like sandbags. Thinking about his own performance, Zhou blushed with shame. Su Qing had given him a vivid lesson on what it meant to lose but not lose. It was a result that he was definitely not willing to face. Tang Tian's state of mind did not have any ripples. It was as though he was in the bizarre dream, fighting against the army of sapphire blue dwarves and listened indifferently. The 220 long flowing tassel ship in Tang Tian's eyes looked like a huge dumpling that was covered with countless flickering law threads. This direction is to Sharp Wind City. Could it be some kind of unique liquid metal? The awakened god armor surface was swimming with lightning snake silver auras, which immediately surged into his palm, causing his right palm to silently become dazzling and bright. The astonishing amount of lightning auras converged in his right palm. He was dumbstruck. How is that possible? Like rain hitting a banana tree, the splinters of wood caused a series of crackling sounds. When the dust settled, the cabin became quiet. Su Qing's face revealed a smile, his left hand extended out, as though he was a hospitable host, inviting his guest to sit down and drink a cup. Screams came out one after another as they ran around like headless flies. The bodyguards on the ship saw that the situation was not right, and immediately jumped off the ship. Ignoring everything else, they ran away. Zhi's face was pale to the extreme. He wanted to turn around and escape the moment the lightning pillar shot out, but when he caught a glimpse of a figure that suddenly appeared out of the corner of his eye, he felt like a cat that had its neck tied by an invisible rope. Zhi's mouth was bitter, he felt that it was inconceivable. What penetrated the flowing tassel ship is lightning laws, and what was used against Su Qing should be spatial law threats, but what was used against me? He had not figured it out yet. Now that he had revealed such a powerful wind law, the more he understood, the more despair he felt. All of the guests who were stunned seemed to have awoken from a dream. The floor full of blood and Su Qing's corpse had frightened them. Splinters of wood flew everywhere like rain. A figure had appeared out of nowhere and stood there indifferently. A thin line of blood appeared on Su Qing's neck. He still maintained the posture of extending his hand out. Only his eyes were wide open, revealing the shock in his heart. Blood spurted out like a fountain, splattering all over the table in front of him, causing Su Qing to fall to the ground. I am bewitching Blade Zhi. Zhi's eyes were wide open, his face that had just regained some color had instantly turned pale white. This is the feeling. It was as though the sky was filled with dumplings. He felt as though his body was being imprisoned. The other party's ghostly footsteps landed in his ears, as though they were calling for his soul, and he could feel the noose around his neck tightening bit by bit. The flowing tassel ship flew faster and faster, flying higher and higher. Suddenly, the sunlight shone into the cabin, and the figure standing at the bow of the ship looked like a god of war. Who the hell is he? Damn it! He even knew that the indistinct killing intent was purposely sensed by the other party. If the other party wanted to kill him, he would have died long ago. Damn it! Bewitching Blade Zhi. I am bewitching Blade Zhi. How can I? Damn it! What the hell is he? He roared in his heart. He obediently raised both of his hands and using his last bit of strength he spoke weakly, I surrender. Even Zhi is acting like that. But in the next moment, the flowing tassel ship that had lost control seemed to be held by an invisible hand and stabilized once again. The panicking people who had just calmed down suddenly lost their balance. The stabilized flowing tassel ship suddenly shot forward, and screams sounded out again. Tang Tian suddenly appeared outside of the flowing tassel ship like a ghost. I have already lost, who cares if I lost or not? He did not know if it was a misconception, but he felt that his breathing had become difficult. This guy's ghost face mask. This realization not only did not help his situation at all, but instead caused him to sink into an even deeper fear, as well as a sense of helplessness that he had never felt before. It was the first time he had seen a ruthless person who would not say a word and attack him. The stifled sobs of the maids were intermittent. He muttered in his heart, shouldn't a person with a bit of status sit down and chat at such a time? Why did he directly make a move? Why did he directly kill me? The feeling this time was different from before, but the result was the same. The people behind him stopped in their tracks. No one saw how the martial artist died, but fear occupied their hearts. They were trembling, their faces as white as paper, their bodies trembling. No one dared to escape. At that time, the words surfaced in his mind. He was like a statue, not daring to move. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.